This guy was just a butcher. One day, a member of the Yakuza pointed a gun straight at him. He had been cutting pigs since he was just a child. Normal people would be shaken by that kind of work, but he was not normal. In a single instant, he cut the Yakuza down with one strike, because to him, there is no difference, animal or human. If you stand in front of his blade, you will be slaughtered. The story begins with a pig's head. It's explained that the genes determining the structure of its tissues and organs share a 95% similarity with humans. And for that reason, a hand firmly grips a blood-covered knife. In ancient times, when dissecting human bodies was taboo, pigs were used as substitutes for study. A voice calls Maru's name, making him turn his head. As a combat boot steps into a pool of blood, the man asks if Maru understands him. He states that in the end, 95% of anyone's life is just a pig's life. The man glares at him and says that Maru, the butcher, has already surpassed the veterans and is now eyeing his position. He calls him an arrogant bastard as he raises an axe over his head. The weapon comes down in a swift, powerful strike. Maru, however, remains motionless, facing him head-on. That's because the blow stopped just before it hit him. The man looks at him in shock, as Maru tells him to take a good look. The scene changes, and the shirtless boss yells that Maru is still far from beating his record. Manager Hong Jun-ho shows off a piece of meat, proud of his own skill. Beside him, the employee Maru agrees without interest, continuing his work. With a swift movement, his knife cuts the meat with precision. Then he slides it between the ribs, separating them perfectly. The boss hugs him from behind, praising his technique, but Maru tells him to stop getting in the way. Ignoring the request, the manager turns and yells for someone named Kim Yang. He calls her again, but she seems to be asleep at her desk. So he screams her name with all his might, making the girl jump up. The accountant, Kim Yang, with her mouth full, questions what this fieldwork is. She waves goodbye and asks them to bring back something tasty. The boss grabs Maru again and asks if he knows how much he cares. Maru reflects that this care means terrible pay, overtime, and no days off. With a passionate expression, the manager says it's all his love for him. He then asks if Maru remembers the test he gave him on his first day to slaughter a pig. The manager recalls promising to pay Maru if he killed the pig, a task most people would hesitate to do. Just the thought of taking the animal's life would be a major obstacle. But Maru showed no hesitation and carried out the order without even blinking. At that very moment, the manager knew one thing. He throws a bucket of water over his head and declares that Maru was born to be a butcher. Maru complains about being dragged there in the middle of his shift, and to make matters worse, he realizes the boss wants him to scrub his back. The manager asks him to use the strength he used in school fights, but Maru refuses to work without pay. As Maru scrubs his back, the boss understands that he really needs money. Maru confirms with a serious look that he needs a lot of money. The boss then offers a job that might not fix his house, but could pull him out of the cycle of poverty. Maru accepts immediately and asks what he needs to do, and the manager wants to know if he really studied in Japan. With a wide, bright smile, the boss says that's enough and tells him to get ready for the trip. Their destination is revealed as a plane crosses the sky towards Japan. A short time later, Maru gets off and waits at a bus stop in a rural Japanese area. Alone at the bus stop, he realizes he's been left behind. His expression shifts to pure shock and disbelief. He understands the plane has already left, abandoning him in Japan. 6 months have passed since that day. Maru was sent there at the request of a Japanese company that needed an urgent supply of meat. Working without a single day off, he wonders why he's doing this in another country. Besides the exhaustion, he notices something very strange about the workplace. Despite the alleged staff shortage, he's the only butcher, and a sinister man watches him all the time. When Maru tries to warn the man about not smoking, he's met with mockery. But the most suspicious thing of all is the work itself. The company only wants the ribs perfectly separated, discarding all other parts of the meat. He holds one of the ribs and notices it feels strangely heavier than normal. Squeezing it, he's certain that something is hidden inside. His butcher's eyes identify a fine-cut line and a white powder leaking from the crack. He finally understands this is a job no Japanese butcher would take, which is why the Yakuza is watching him closely. He stares at the rib in his hand, suspicious of the white powder leaking from inside it. However, he decides to focus on the work, thinking he'll be going home soon anyway. Immediately, he changes his mind and wonders if he shouldn't just leave right then. The scene cuts to the office in South Korea, where his boss answers the phone, surprised. In a phone booth, Maru yells that he can't take another 6 months of night shifts and Yakuza surveillance. The boss yells back, questioning why he's acting like this now, after so long. Maru retorts, stating it's not sudden and that something is very wrong with that place. The manager reminds him of his family's debts and how he begged for this opportunity. He pressures him, asking if Maru thought making money was easy, but promises to sort everything out in a month. Maru grinds his teeth and agrees to the deadline, having no other choice. Hanging up the phone, he punches the wall of the booth, frustrated at being trapped because of money. With a look of pure hatred, he curses the hellish place he's in. Back at work, he slams his knife into the meat with force. He takes out his anger on the task, repeating to himself that he just has to endure for one more month. Just then, a voice calls him in Japanese, and he turns around with a weary expression. The Yakuza guard approaches with a disturbing smile and asks if the work is going well. Then he touches Maru's face with the same hand he used to adjust himself, making Maru decide that this is the man's end. The man continues, saying he's tempted to recruit him, which pushes Maru to his absolute limit. However, he sees a gun tucked into the man's waistband and forces himself to keep his composure. Maru changes the subject, and the guard explains he's leaving early and that the new guy will be taking over. At that moment, someone's footsteps approach, and the guard announces the rookie's arrival. A huge, tattooed man appears, and Maru is shocked to learn they're the same age. The guard introduces Maru and orders the new guy to take the ribs to the designated spot. Holding a bowl, the rookie asks where exactly the designated spot is. The boss gets annoyed with the question and tells him to use his head and just leave them in any corner. Suddenly, the meat hooks on the ceiling begin to swing violently. Maru looks up, confused and frightened by the unexpected shaking. Then, the entire warehouse starts to tremble violently. An earthquake hits the site, and the boss desperately yells not to drop the cargo. The rookie loses his balance and stumbles from the intensity of the tremor. The rookie screams as he drops the bowl, scattering dozens of ribs across the warehouse floor. On impact, the bones break, releasing a thick cloud of white powder into the air. Maru immediately covers his face, coughing as he recognizes the suspicious substance. The guard laughs nervously and asks if this is the first earthquake Maru has ever been in. He tries to play it off, saying it's just bone dust, and tells Maru to get back to work. Maru keeps his nose and mouth covered, looking at them suspiciously. While the boss yells at the rookie to clean up the mess, Maru quietly steps away. The rookie then questions the boss, mentioning that the butcher is from Korea. He assumes Maru doesn't know their drugs and, more importantly, that he doesn't understand Japanese. With his back to them, Maru responds in perfect Japanese, telling him to shut up. He looks over his shoulder, confirming he heard and understood the entire conversation. The guard glares at the rookie with fury, calling him an idiot. He realizes too late that the Korean actually understands their language perfectly. Without hesitation, the guard draws his gun and points it directly at Maru, apologizing before he attacks. With the gun aimed at his head, Maru despairs, thinking his life will end like this. He reflects on how he worked hard every day just to try and support his family. After so much effort, he finds himself about to die an insignificant death. His eyes widen in terror as he stares down the barrel of the gun up close. As the man's finger prepares to pull the trigger, Maru refuses to accept this end. His old boss's voice echoes in his memory, reminding him of the test on his first day. He recalls that while most would hesitate, Maru carried out the task without blinking. Unlike others, who were shaken after taking an animal's life, Maru remained calm. With a focused gaze, he asked what the most efficient way to kill the pig with a single blow was. At that moment, his boss watched him with growing interest. A sinister smile formed on his face as he realized Maru's true nature. He understood that Maru was born to be a butcher, whether of pigs or men. Back in reality, Maru manages to simply rip the man's arm off in a single move. With a cold, determined look, Maru finally accepts his true identity. He is a butcher. The guard curses the situation, holding the stump where his hand was torn off. Maru reflects that to this day, he has slaughtered countless pigs, animals with a 95% similarity to humans. And because of this experience, his eyes focus, as he knows one thing very well. He knows exactly where to make the precise cut on a person's body. He knows the exact point to pierce with his sharp blade, and above all, he knows exactly how to make a person die. He stares at his blade, finally understanding that he is, in fact, a butcher. In his mind, he recalls having processed countless pigs to this day. But now, the body he pierces releases a red liquid in a disturbingly real way. He then wonders if what he just killed was a pig or a person. Back in reality, his eyes widen as he realizes that, yes, it must be a person. Just then, heavy, rapid footsteps charge toward him. Maru looks up, startled by the sudden presence. A furious man runs at him, screaming and calling him a bastard. He then grabs him, wanting to kill him. The impact throws him backward, making him collide with the pig carcasses. He hits him hard and shouts, demanding to know why he touched his brother. The man continues, saying he was a good person and was going to propose to his girlfriend. Maru just watches the blow approach, sensing the imminent danger. He realizes that to get out of this situation, he needs a vital point. Then, he plunges the blade into the man's stomach with all his might. Maru is shocked to see the attack didn't have the expected effect. The man calls him a punk and hits him with another punch, asking if he thinks he's never been stabbed before. He scoffs, saying a toothpick like that doesn't hurt, and Maru is astonished by his resilience. In a fit of rage, the man lunges to grab him again. He grabs him by the neck and squeezes with crushing force. He screams that he'll rip his throat out, leaving Maru unable to breathe. Maru's vision darkens, and he hears a familiar voice calling his name. In his mind, Hong Joon-ho's voice explains that pigs have strong bones and thick fat. He reminds him that a true butcher must memorize the best path to cut, and that with time, he would instinctively be able to see this path in bodies. Back in the present, Maru starts twisting the knife still embedded in the man's side. With a scream of pain and effort, he continues to twist the blade deeper. The pain finally hits him, and the man stumbles back as Maru lands a blow. In his mind, Hong Joon-ho's voice echoes, stating that no matter what anyone says, he is a natural-born butcher. With a fixed gaze, covered in red liquid, he finally accepts his true nature. Before him, the two men are now just lifeless bodies on the slaughterhouse floor. He tries to drag one of them, muttering to himself that this guy is heavier than a pig. Suddenly, nausea rises forcefully, and he brings a hand to his mouth to stop himself from vomiting. The sight and smell of death finally overwhelm him, causing him to vomit on the floor. Still panting, he tries to justify his actions, repeating that it was self-defense. He looks at the scene and realizes that if he went to the police, it would all just sound like an excuse. Then, an even greater fear hits him when he thinks about what the Yakuza will do. With a determined face, he concludes that the only way out is to set fire to everything. At that same moment, an armed man appears on a platform above, shouting and pointing a gun at him. Maru turns, surprised and terrified to realize there was another one. The shooter opens fire, furious that he, a simple worker, killed his men. He runs for his life as the man vows to hunt him to the end. Maru throws himself into a walk-in freezer, and the shooter calls him a coward for running away. The shooter mocks him, saying he only ran to end up in a dead end. Then he yells for the coward to die and unleashes a hail of bullets. Smoke rises from the gun's barrel as he prepares to enter. He advances cautiously into the cold room, but sees no one at first glance. As he walks among the carcasses, he taunts Maru, promising to kill him quickly if he surrenders. Suddenly, he stops and looks around, suspicious of the silence. His feet are planted next to one of the large, hanging pig carcasses. With a wry smile, he turns and says the situation is curious since he can't seem to find him. In a fit of rage, he starts shooting at one of the carcasses, screaming that he can't find him anywhere. From inside the perforated flesh, a booted foot suddenly drops, revealing the hiding spot. Maru emerges from inside the carcass, screaming and charging with a cleaver in hand. The shooter turns, completely shocked, not understanding what just happened. Taking advantage of the opening, he uses the hanging pigs as leverage. He strikes the man squarely, sending him flying backward. The man screams in rage and frustration, calling him a punk. Maru rushes forward with the knife and yells for the bastard to die. In a swift move, Maru buries the knife in the man's chest. He gets irritated by the insults and screams for the man to shut up. With a smile, the shooter calls him a fool for not aiming for the neck. Fallen on the floor, the man manages to point the machine gun in his direction. He aims it up at him and yells for the pig to die already. His finger is on the trigger, but it trembles, unable to pull. He grows desperate, unable to move his fingers. In his memory, Hong Joon-ho explains the brachial plexus, the bundle of nerves connecting the spinal cord to a pig's front legs. He continues, showing that in humans, the location is the same, and a strike there immobilizes both person and animal. Hong Joon-ho asks him if he's starting to see the similarity between the two, and warns him that a time will come when he'll get confused. Back in the present, Maru raises the cleaver over the man's head, who desperately begs him to wait. With an empty gaze, Maru stares at the fallen man before him. Then, he delivers the final blow. 6 hours later, a plane lands quietly in Korea. Maru climbs a long flight of stairs in his neighborhood, carrying his luggage from the trip. Suddenly, exhaustion hits him, and he stops, panting and worn out. He stops, thinking that maybe he should move out of this neighborhood. He remembers that, thankfully, he managed to catch a flight back without being followed by the Yakuza. To ensure his safety, he set the place on fire, erasing all traces of what happened. He arrives in front of his house, believing that everything is finally over now. Now he descends the last few steps toward the back entrance. Arriving at the door, he finds it strange that the lights are on so early. He turns the doorknob and prepares to enter the house. With a forced smile, he opens the door and announces that he's back with lots of money and gifts. But his smile vanishes the instant he sees the scene inside. He freezes in the doorway, seeing the house completely ransacked. Shocked, he wonders what the hell happened in there. Seeing the open and empty drawers, he first thinks it was a burglar. Desperate, he starts shouting his mother's and Naru's names. As he moves through the room, he steps on something that cracks under his foot. He looks down at the floor, confused by the noise he just made. Crouching down, he finds the remains of a large bone and wonders what it is. His face fills with horror as he realizes there's exposed marrow in the bone. Suddenly, a calm voice greets him, saying they're glad he's back. Maru looks up and is confronted by a group of Yakuza men standing in the room. He can't believe they've already managed to find him here. An older, serious-looking man confronts him and asks if he is Maru. The man then says he was looking for him anyway, and that Maru just made his job easier. Maru grips the broken bone like a weapon, realizing they followed him to Korea to finish the job. With the bone in hand, he clenches his fist and vows to himself that he will kill them all. Maru's expression shifts to one of complete surprise and confusion. The man shows a police badge and introduces himself as Detective Han Tai-sik from the Narcotics Investigation Division. With a serious look, he calls him by name and formally asks him to come with them. Maru stares at the man, repeating the words detective and narcotics division in disbelief. He looks through the door and sees police officers outside, realizing it wasn't the Yakuza, but the police. Images of the men he killed in Japan flash through his mind, and he wonders if this is what it's about. The detective interrupts his thoughts, saying he'll explain the details later and asking for his cooperation. Maru looks at the mess in his house and questions if it's right for the police to do this and what he did wrong. One of the officers quickly tells him he's got it all wrong. He explains that they weren't the ones who did it, but that the mess happened when his mother had a breakdown. Detective Han Tai-sik confirms the story with a serious tone. Then, he reveals to Maru that his mother is using drugs, leaving him completely shocked. A family photo in a frame shows Maru, his brother, his father, and his smiling mother. He remembered how immature his mother had always been, spending money non-stop even after the family went bankrupt. But despite everything, he had always loved her smile. The happy image is replaced by the sight of his mother screaming in pain, foaming at the mouth. He watches her from a distance in a hospital bed as doctors try to restrain her during an overdose. The detective explains that when the police found her, she was already in that state. Sweat drips down Maru's face as he processes the terrible news. The detective then shows an evidence bag, explaining that this is the drug found at the crime scene. He asks Maru if he knows when his mother started using drugs. Maru says he's not sure, and the detective presses him, wanting to know if he really doesn't know anything. The detective's gaze narrows, suspicious of the evasive answer. He finally says he understands and hands over his business card, asking him to call if he remembers anything. In the hospital corridor, the two police officers walk away while Maru stays by his mother's bedside. Later, inside a car in the underground parking lot, the situation is tense. Detective Han lights a cigarette. Beside him, his younger partner coughs and cries, suffocated by the thick smoke. The partner begs him to open the window, but the detective tells him to shut up so he can concentrate. He complains that the car feels like a gas chamber, but Han simply asks why he should be the one to go outside to smoke. The detective puts out the cigarette in a cup full of butts, repeating Maru's name to himself. With a fixed gaze, he seems to be connecting the dots on something important about the case. Back at the hospital, Maru watches his unconscious mother in bed, thinking that none of this makes sense. He reflects that, without any information, the Yakuza couldn't have moved faster than him. Then he wonders who would do this to his mother, and just then his phone rings with manager Hong's name. Answering the call, Hong Jun-ho asks worriedly if he's okay after the fire in Japan. Maru says he's fine, but tries to end the call, saying he has work to do. On the other end of the line, Hong insists dramatically for him to tell him what's going on. Suddenly, he asks directly if Maru's mother used drugs, leaving him speechless. Hong starts laughing hysterically, and a furious Maru demands to know what he just said. The scene reveals Hong Jun-ho relaxing while getting a skin treatment, and he asks if Maru received the bone marrow well. He continues, mocking the idea that the Yakuza could have found his address. Maru remains silent, wondering what he did wrong to deserve this. Hong cynically reassures him, saying he did nothing wrong. Then, He reminds him that he's an elite butcher and that there's a place reserved for him. Maru explodes with rage, shouting about what he did to other people's families. Hong interrupts the yelling with a cold voice, calling his name and making him stop. He then reveals that Maru's sister misses him so much that he decided to pay her a visit at her company. He reminds him that his mother needs rehab and he needs money to live. From the hospital, Maru hears the offer that he can make a lot of money by cutting people up. Even as he grits his teeth, Hong invites him to go catch a nobody with him. He then says goodbye with a cheerful tone, saying they'll talk later. Maru hangs up the phone and stares at his mother, still unconscious in the hospital bed. His hand clenches the phone tightly, feeling the weight of the decision he has to make. With his face shrouded in darkness, he accepts his fate, having no other choice. The scene shifts to a delivery truck. One of the men scolds his colleague for just standing there and insults him, saying this kind of task suits him better. Suddenly, one of the heavy bags falls off the back of the truck and hits the ground. The colleague sees him standing there and yells at him to pick up the pig that fell. Annoyed, he picks it up and calls him an incompetent idiot. He lifts him into the air, asking if this is how he treats the meat and threatening to tell manager Hong. The man calls him a bastard, but obeys, hoisting the heavy bag onto his shoulders. Getting out of the truck, he grumbles and curses quietly in frustration. Supervisor Baek Seoko complains about the heat and the number of packages to load. His colleague Choi Do-il tells him to go get the rookie when he's done. Baek gets angry and accuses him of treating him like a slave, but Choi reminds him that he lost at rock, paper, scissors. With a provocative smile, Choi suggests that he's scared of the new guy. The vein on Baek's forehead pops with anger at being called a pig. He grabs a meat mallet and furiously asks who he's calling a pig. Unfazed, Choi pulls out a boning knife. The two weapons clash as they face off. The tension between them is so intense, it manifests as a red dragon and a white tiger facing each other. Choi taunts him, asking if he's finally mad after being called a pig for so long. The two glare at each other with hatred, ready to continue the fight at any moment. With a sigh, Choi puts away his knife and calls him a lovable bastard. He says he's leaving and that Baek can have the truck, certain he'll cause an accident. Later that night, the delivery truck is parked in front of the building. Inside the truck, Baek is sleeping peacefully. Suddenly, a bubble pops, snapping him out of his trance. A cat appears on the car window, and Baek asks if it came to cover for Supervisor Choi. He picks up the cat and plays with it, asking if it came for the smell of meat. Then he grumbles, wondering why Choi is taking so long. He goes down the stairs, complaining that Choi probably went to dinner with the rookie without him. Seeing the building door ajar, he assumes they had so much fun they forgot to close it. He walks in, calling for Choi while holding the cat. His eyes widen in shock at the scene inside. The hallway is completely destroyed, with bottles and broken glass scattered across the floor. He approaches a body, cursing Choi for bringing the new guy here. He asks the rookie where Supervisor Choi is, warning him about Manager Hong. Confused by the lack of response, he leans in for a closer look. He finds Choi's lifeless body. Seeing him up close, he tries to call his name again. Desperate, he runs a hand through his hair. Unable to believe the idiot let himself get killed, he grips the handle of his mallet, questioning why the rookie would dare point a knife at his superiors. With a manic smile, he warns the new guy that if he keeps up that attitude, he'll soon be dead on the floor. Just then, someone approaches, interrupting his intimidation. Baek comes face to face with Maru, who questions the word superior with a defiant tone. With a cold gaze, he coolly asks if Baek is also from World Livestock. Baek cracks a mocking smile, clearly underestimating the situation. With the sledgehammer on his shoulder, he insults Maru, saying kids these days have no respect for their elders. In an explosive move, Maru attacks with his knife, aiming straight for Baek's neck. With a wide, disturbing grin, Baek cracks a joke, asking if he knows what you call a strong cow. He answers his own joke, beef jerky, while blocking Maru's attack with a violent swing of his sledgehammer. The impact is so powerful that the blade of Maru's knife shatters into pieces. Maru stares at the hilt of the knife in his hand, shocked that his weapon was destroyed so easily. Baek raises the sledgehammer for another attack, shouting at the rookie to pull himself together. Far away, a table is filled with a party cake and several expensive gifts. In a decorated room, men in suits clean up a mess while one of them comments that he can't believe they sent Chief Baek to get the rookie. Another man agrees, worried that the combination of the two is dangerous, especially knowing Chief Choi's personality. A third, more agitated man shouts that Director Hong guaranteed this rookie was the best of the best. The argument heats up, and one of them growls, asking if they have a problem with Chiefs Choi and Baek. The fight becomes physical and comical, with the men arguing over who is stronger and whether Baek's jokes are sacred or just plain weird. The man insists that, unlike the others, he's actually seen Chief Baek fight. In a flashback, Chief Baek holds a man by the neck while telling one of his jokes about a cow on fire. He promises to spare the man's life if he gets the answer right, the very moment he became a legend. Back then, he defeated every bully and gangster in the area, becoming the emperor of the region. He was already strong with just his bare hands, but what completed him was something else. It was the hammer that director Hong himself gave him. That was the moment the physically strongest man met the most powerful weapon. And that's why he's called the Unstoppable Bull, charging forward with a crushing blow. He scoffs, asking how Maru managed to kill Chief Choi with such pathetic skills. Maru struggles under the hammer's pressure, recognizing that Choi was indeed weaker than this guy. Suddenly, his eyes widened in complete shock. With a crazed smile, Baek raises the hammer to crush him once and for all. The blow misses as he dodges at the last moment. With his hammer stuck in the ground, he approaches and tells another joke about a cow that knows how to paint. Then he yells the answer, Picasso, while attacking again. Baek shouts, annoyed that he isn't laughing, and throws a punch. But Maru manages to block the blow with his arm. The impact throws him against the wall, and Baek complains that he won't even laugh when his superior tries to lighten the mood. Maru realizes that the more they fight, the faster his opponent gets. Baek gets angry, questioning why he keeps attacking without responding to his words. He raises the sledgehammer and says that they'll see when he finally starts laughing. As he attacks relentlessly, he tells a series of cow jokes, one about a cow coming out of an egg and another driving a car. The sequence of blows and jokes continues, with Baek moving in a brutal and unpredictable way. He finishes a joke by smashing the ground with his sledgehammer and shouting the punchline. A wide, insane smile spreads across his face as he admires the destruction. Maru seizes the moment and lunges forward with the broken knife hilt, aiming for an opening. In an instant, his eyes widen at the perfect opportunity. The psycho actually stopped the knife with his teeth. He tells another joke about a cow biting a knife. He spits out the punchline, looking completely deranged. Maru tries to finish him, but Baek complains that even Choi laughed at that one. With a crazed smile, he mocks Maru, saying his scratches are weaker than a mosquito bite. He raises the sledgehammer over his head, preparing to show him what a real attack looks like. Then, he spins in a fury of blows. His hand grips the weapon's handle with crushing force. He brings the sledgehammer down in a final blow, and Maru rolls to the side at the last second to escape. Lying on the ground, Maru realizes with frustration that the man has gotten even faster. He can barely follow his movements, understanding that now he can't even dodge anymore. Baek takes the chance and knees him in the face. He grabs Maru's foot and tells another joke about a cow that flies in the sky. He shouts another silly punchline and takes his chance. And with a violent pull, he throws him hard against the wall. Maru struggles to his feet, spitting blood from the impact. Before he can recover, Baek is already in the air, coming down on him for another attack. He glares at him, still not seeing him laugh, and asks what you call a laughing cow. Suddenly, his expression changes to shock as he sees blood trickling from his own arm. Standing and wounded, Baek realizes the rookie was only aiming for his vital points. He finally understands why director Hong called him the best of the best. Still standing, he looks down at Maru on the floor and says he wants to ask him something. With a defiant look, Maru asks if anyone actually laughs at his horrible jokes. Baek's expression twists into one of blind, absolute fury. He grips the sledgehammer's handle, saying he thought about going easy on him because he's new, but now he screams, enraged that Maru dared to belittle his jokes. Elsewhere, someone hammers a nail. It's Hong Jun-ho, who admires his handiwork with a satisfied smile. He then looks at a photo of Maru in a heart-shaped frame, praising how photogenic he is. He interrupts his employees' fight, and they immediately greet him. Hong reflects that out of everyone, Chief Baek would be the perfect partner for Maru. His men agree that despite the rookie's talent, Chief Baek is still the best. Hong's smile vanishes, and his expression turns dark. In a threatening voice, he asks why they are addressing our Maru so informally. The men are shocked and confused by their boss's unexpected reprimand. Hong questions them, saying they should address Maru as manager. One of them protests, saying the rookie is only 23 years old. With a smile, he reminds them that they called Chief Baek the Unstoppable Bull. Back in the fight, he says that a bull is still just a beast. The heavy sledgehammer finally slips from Baek's weakened hand. He falls to his knees, defeated, as Maru stands over him. Baek looks up, exhausted and shocked by his own defeat. No matter what a beast does, could it ever defeat a true butcher? He finally understands Maru's strategy, realizing he wasn't just cutting blindly. He realizes Maru was severing his nerves, so they would all rupture at once when he used his strength. With a curse, he admits to himself that he thought he was just toying with the rookie. He understands that, in reality, he He was dancing in the palm of Maru's hand the whole time. With the tip of the broken knife at his forehead, Beck calls him Rookie. Maru raises the sledgehammer and asks what you call a dying cow. Suddenly, he finds himself in the middle of a shower of confetti and celebration. Before him, a crowd of men congratulates him and welcomes him as manager Maru. They shout with enthusiasm, promising to serve him with all their hearts. Maru says nothing, only to throw something in their direction. The crowd gets excited seeing the name tags flying, thinking it's a gift, but their joy turns to pure horror. He then reveals that the tags belong to 2 more pigs he took care of. With a defiant look, he tells them to come and get them if they can. In response, all the men draw their weapons, ready to attack. Maru turns his back on them and walks toward the elevator. Indifferent to the threat, he turns with a hateful glare and calls them wretched pigs, questioning why they won't fight. Sitting on a throne, Hong Joon-ho watches his men ready for a fight and comments on that bastard, Maru. He notes that Maru has gotten much stronger than expected. In the middle of the fight, Maru defends himself from multiple simultaneous blows. He then uses a mallet to strike one of the men in the face. Maru glares at his enemies with a furious look. While Hong Joon-ho just watches, all the henchmen charge at Maru, screaming. He moves forward with his knife, and with a single spinning motion, he takes down all the men around him. Hong Joon-ho tells himself that this won't be enough. He then leans forward, placing his hands on his knees and standing up. His fist clenches as he whispers Maru's name, but instead of fighting, he grabs 2 glow sticks and starts cracking them frantically. Joon-ho yells for Maru to keep going and finish them all off, leaving his subordinates completely confused. The scene changes to docile pigs in a field. Although they are passive animals, they sometimes attack humans. For a butcher, the first step is to knock out the pigs. Maru raises the meat tenderizer mallet high in the air, and with a single blow, he smashes it against one of the men's heads. One of the henchmen screams furiously, questioning how he dares to use Boss Baek's mallet. He then charges forward, ordering them to cut off Maru's head and offer it on Baek's altar. The next step to follow is the bleeding, because before dissecting a pig, you must drain all of its blood. Maru raises his knife, now fully aware of this. Then he plunges it into the henchman's neck, who screams in pain. With the man agonizing in his arms, the others rush to attack him from behind. Maru uses the man's body as a shield, making him a victim of his own comrades. The other men stop in shock, calling Maru a bastard for taking Bosso hostage. One of them runs towards Maru, yelling that he's going to save Bosso. Now skinning is the first main step of the dissection process. As the name implies, it is the act of removing the skin. With a crazed look, Maru raises his knife, ready to skin his enemies. He then charges forward, cutting down everyone in his path, while Hong Joon-ho decides to leave the rest of the steps for later. The men's bodies lie on the ground, all of them lifeless, panting. Maru catches his breath for a moment. He then rises amidst the bodies, holding the mallet in one hand and the knife in the other. The survivors stare at him in terror, calling him a monster and wondering how they could defeat someone at the manager level. When he takes a step forward, one of them screams desperately for him not to come any closer. At that moment, Joon-ho's voice calls out to him, and Maru turns in surprise. Suddenly, he attacks without even thinking. Joon-ho's voice continues, saying there would come a time when even he would be confused. He then asks if Maru knows what he is killing. With a terrifying smile, he crushes the object in his hand until it shatters into pieces. The scene shifts abruptly, and Hong Joon-ho appears holding a birthday cake, asking what he thought of the people he killed. He then forcefully shoves the cake into Maru's face, yelling and asking if they looked like pigs. Joon-ho declares he knew Maru would become like this one day, the same kind of butcher as him. Hong Joon-ho says that's enough playing with the pigs and invites him inside. Maru lifts his head and asks where his sister is. The two stare at each other for a moment, until someone steps on the remains of the cake scattered on the floor. Joon-ho recognizes her as Kim Yang, while Maru turns to look at her. With her eyes full of tears, she wonders how anyone could be so cruel. She brings a frosting-covered finger to her mouth, still crying. Kim Yang glares at the group and asks who was responsible for this. Her face consumed by fury, she screams again, demanding to know who did this. Lying on the floor, one of the injured men recognizes her and tries to speak, but before he can finish his sentence, he is brutally stopped. With his foot on the man's body, Hong Joon-ho points directly at Maru. Immediately, the other two surviving henchmen also turn and point in the same direction. Maru is completely confused by the accusation and can only say, "Me?" Suddenly, a gunshot echoes through the room, the bullet whizzing inches past his head. With her gun aimed directly at Maru, Kim Yang calls him a bastard. He throws himself to the ground to dodge the shots, surprised that she's armed. Having fought an armed opponent before, he knows he needs to close the distance. Crouching, he prepares to charge, knowing that even though it's risky, it's his only chance to win. But to his utter surprise, she's the one who runs toward him to attack. Maru is shocked that she closed the distance between them herself. Despite his surprise, he reacts in time to deflect the gun. The gun fires into the air amidst the struggle, and now she is finally within his reach. With a focused gaze, he decides he'll end the fight in a single blow. However, she anticipates his move and prepares a kick. The blow lands squarely on his chin, snapping his head back from the impact. He growls in pain, feeling the force of the unexpected kick. Before he can recover, she hits him with a brutal sequence of punches to the face. He spits blood, not understanding how this girl can be so strong even in close quarters combat. She continues her furious assault, screaming about avenging her cake, while he finds no opening to defend himself. Hong Joon-ho yells for Maru to be careful, revealing that Kim Yang is the best agent. That in that same instant, she manages to knock him to the ground with a swift move. Joon-ho finishes his sentence, saying she was trained by North Korea, as she pins him down and points the gun at his head. In a flashback, dozens of bodies are scattered across the floor and over the tables. Kim Yang eats desperately, stuffing noodles and meat into her mouth. She sits alone at a table, devouring food among the dead. Someone slowly approaches the girl. A muscular man with an axe on his shoulder appears, asking which livestock killed the pig he was hunting. He lifts his sunglasses, saying he wants to see the face of the one responsible. His eyes widen in surprise when he sees the scene. He realizes the little girl isn't a pig, but a human. With her mouth still full, she asks who he is and if he's a soldier from the Southern Army. The man gives a sinister smile and replies that she's a person, but a beggar. He places a soda bottle on his axe and tells her to take her time eating. The girl takes the drink and keeps eating, leading the man to comment on her appetite. He suggests she could make a lot of money doing mukbang, and she asks what that is. Realizing she doesn't know, he shows her a video on his phone of a girl eating. He explains it's a way to make money just by eating like that. The girl is shocked by the idea of earning money just for eating so much. Her eyes sparkling, she can hardly believe she can make money from this, as the man offers her a job with even more food. She suddenly stands up, declaring that her revolutionary spirit will never be corrupted by American capitalist ideals. But when he offers unlimited meals and snacks, she immediately swears loyalty and calls him master. She then gathers the rest of the food to clean the area, and he asks her to bring back some ice cream. A week later, Hong Joon-ho reads in the newspaper about a strange explosion and looks intrigued. Suddenly, Kim Yang appears with torn and dirty clothes, and he asks if she was responsible for what's in the paper. He then changes the subject and asks if one of the popsicles she's eating is his. With her mouth full, she pretends not to know what he's talking about, and is then formally introduced. The scene cuts back to the fight, with Kim Yang pinning Maru to the ground, a gun pointed at his head. In a desperate effort, Maru manages to divert the gun just as it fires. He uses the force of the movement to throw her aside and break free. Seizing the chance, she lands a powerful kick to his face. The intense fight continues in the background as a fallen cell phone starts to ring. The call is from his wife, with an encouraging message from his kids on the screen, while the phone's owner agonizes nearby. Lying on the floor, Chief O answers the phone and tells his daughter he's a little busy at work. His face twists in horror when she innocently tells him that she and her mom already ate eel. Desperate, he asks what she means by that, as his daughter explains that her mom is also sleeping over at grandma's house. He lets out a panicked scream when the girl asks if she's going to get a little brother now. The other two survivors call out to him, telling him to come hide with them. Relieved that they're alive, Chief O hears one of them ask enviously if he's going to eat eel again. Hong Joon-ho approaches and says Chief O can go home early, but he begs to work overtime. Through his glasses, Joon-ho carefully watches the fight between Maru and Kim Yang. He thinks that despite the noticeable difference in their levels, it's an interesting matchup. One of the henchmen, trapped under his leg, asks if Miss Kim Yang is going to win. Joon-ho laughs and agrees that his Yang fights well, with skills as incredible as the amount of food she eats. The henchmen start cheering, yelling for Kim Yang to finish off Manager Ha. With a dark smile, Hong Joon-ho asks if they know something. He explains that while Kim Yang was trained to be perfect, Maru was already human, even when he knew nothing. He only taught Maru a few things because he found him interesting, starting with a lesson on butchering. In a flashback, he demonstrates a precise cut on a carcass, stating that dissection must be done in a single blow. Immediately, Maru replicates the move perfectly and asks if that's how it's done. Shocked, Junho reveals that Maru mastered the technique in just 1 month. He remembers Maru complaining about the difficulty, and how he decided to propose an even greater challenge since he learned so quickly. The challenge was a monstrous creature in chains, a task that would take even a chief-level employee an hour. Junho then unleashes the beast and orders Maru to try and butcher it. He recalls what he thought about that bastard Maru. The kid didn't even take 5 minutes to take down the creature. At that moment, Junho was certain he had found the perfect butcher he'd always been looking for. Back in the present, Maru seizes an opening and manages to disarm Kim Yang, sending the pistol flying. Meanwhile, Junho asks Chief O if he knows what a butcher is, and he explains the word means a man with nothing. Junho praises Chief O's knowledge. In the fight, Kim Yang uses the distance to reach for a knife on her back. Now armed, she knows the fight isn't over until it's over. She then unleashes a flurry of strikes against the boy. He firmly grips the knife's handle, resisting her force. Then, he shoves her back and counterattacks. Kim Yang's eyes widen in shock, unable to believe what she's seeing. She realizes that bastard is copying her moves. Junho comments that it wouldn't be easy for Maru to defeat Kim Yang, as they exchange a series of rapid blows. However, he points out that it's impossible to ignore the fact that Maru is improving by the minute. Maru manages to block one of her attacks with the blade of his own knife, and in the end, the fight comes down to a matter of time. Both prepare for their next move, planting their feet firmly on the ground. The question is whether she can defeat him before he catches up to her, or if he can hold on long enough to surpass her. Junho then turns to his men and asks if they're also curious about the outcome. He gets up, standing on top of them. With a malicious grin, he says he won't let them watch. The men beg to see the end of the fight, but instead, Junho simply crouches down. Now in front of them, a single swing of his axe creates a shockwave that sweeps through the entire hall. He says he's going to show them something even more interesting, leaving Maru, Kim Yang, and his henchmen terrified. With the axe on his shoulder, he calls out to Maru in a serious tone. Then, with a challenging smile, he invites him to face him. Gritting her teeth, Kim Yang asks if the old geezer is making fun of her. Pointing her knife, she calls him a traitor for hurting her pride. Holding a card, he says he first needs to get to a luxury buffet that closes in an hour. Then he tosses a golden card into the air and tells her to run, and she desperately scrambles to catch it. Junho watches her, calling her a psycho for trying to kill someone just because a cake fell. He turns to Maru with a sinister smile, saying their time has finally come. Maru leaps into the air with his knife, shouting and demanding to know where his brother is. Maru's expression turns to pure shock and confusion. Junho effortlessly blocks the attack with his axe, sending Maru flying backward. Maru wonders what this man's true strength is. Hong Junho approaches and says that from now on, they need to fight with everything they've got. Maru's eyes widen on high alert. A white line cuts through the air, and Maru feels as if he's been split in two. He freezes, feeling the cut without even being touched, and whispers Chief Hong's name. Junho warns him that if he lets his guard down, he's done for, leaving Maru even more shocked by his power. Maru starts to remember when he was 21 years old. After his father's death, he had to become the head of the family. Because of that, he had to work at World Livestock to survive. The work was tough, but honestly, it wasn't so bad. He remembers Hong Junho teaching him the tricks of the trade, because there was someone there who treated him like his own son. Maru trusted him, but then he saw his mother in a hospital bed and wondered why. He screams in desperation, wanting to know why this happened. He furiously attacks Junho, screaming and asking why he did this to him. Junho blocks the blow with ease, yet Maru demands to be told the reason. He then hits Maru's head with the axe, reminding him to keep his movements simple. Junho explains that the bigger the movement, the bigger the opening, and Maru thinks he's found an opportunity. With his knife raised, he prepares to strike, certain this is his chance. But Junho just flicks him on the forehead, teaching him to tell a real opening from a fake one. With a mark on his forehead, Maru realizes that attacking Chief Hong's openings just doesn't work. Maru wonders what to do if attacking the openings doesn't work, considering slicing him up slowly like he did the steer. He also considers rushing in and ending it all at once, like he did with the supervisor and glasses. However, he remembers the fight against Kim Yang and realizes he needs to approach this differently. With a wide, terrifying smile, Hong Junho gets closer and asks what Maru is thinking about. He warns him not to daydream in the middle of a fight. Junho scolds him for letting his guard down, reminding him it could get him killed. As Maru backs away, Junho hits him with the handle of the axe and criticizes him for dodging in a straight line. He explains that's what happens when his movements are obvious, and Maru desperately tries to grab the axe. Junho easily stops him by throwing him away. He then knocks Maru down with a swing of the axe, questioning what he learned in his training. Enraged, Maru charges forward screaming, ready to attack again. The henchmen watch in awe, commenting that the boss could have ended the fight, but he's just playing with him. Chief O says they don't get it, thinking Junho is trying to finish him off in an even crueler way. The other men agree, calling the boss a monster and a beast, while Chief O tries to say that wasn't what he meant. He then reveals the truth, explaining that Maru is just keeping up with the boss's pace. Chief O declares that Manager Maru is the real monster, as Junho blocks his attack and advises him to aim a little lower. Maru grinds his teeth in frustration, feeling the power difference. He charges again, yelling for Junho to fight seriously, while Chief O claims they are witnessing the birth of a monster. Junho laughs and blocks the blows with ease, saying that if Maru wants a real fight, he needs to come at him with everything he's got. As Maru keeps improving with each attack, Junho points out that he's still missing something. He then uses the weight of the axe to overpower Maru's knife, explaining that size gives him the advantage in a direct clash. Maru can barely move under the pressure as Junho taunts him, saying he isn't even using his full strength yet. He kneels, exhausted, and Junho asks if he's been eating properly to have so little strength. With the axe pressed against Maru, he questions if the kid really thinks he can kill him with such a mediocre effort. Under the pressure, the blade of Maru's knife shatters. Junho then smashes the ground next to him with the axe, ordering him to get up, since humans don't crawl like animals. He stares at the broken knife, and Junho asks if he's going to cry over a broken sword. Since things have come to this, Junho suggests they fight bare-handed. Seeing another knife, he jumps to grab it until his boss asks if fighting without weapons scares him. Junho ends up concluding that Maru really needs a sword as he picks up a table. Now throwing the table at the kid, he yells that he wouldn't just stand there watching. He then leaps, shouting and ready to attack, but Junho just seems annoyed by the situation. At the last second, Junho bends down to tie his shoelace, leaving Maru completely shocked as he stops his blow. He then grabs Maru's ankle, scolding him for running with his shoelaces untied. With a single motion, he throws him into the air, saying you have to take care of the basics. Junho hits him in mid-air with the side of the axe, looking genuinely frustrated. As Maru falls, Junho yells, asking how he's going to manage to live without him. Maru's body slams violently against the floor. With the young man down and groaning in pain, Junho decides that's enough for today. He approaches and asks if Maru was wondering why he did all this. He asks if he knows how much the drug factory he burned down in Japan was worth. The answer comes next. The factory was worth 300 billion won. Junho then questions if he thinks he can handle the Japanese who will now come after him. In the end, Maru will need to find a way to settle things that is acceptable to them. Then, he reveals that Maru's mother's addiction is proof of the punishment he deserves. Junho then points to the bodies on the floor, saying that this whole mess proves Maru's ability to pay the money back. He holds his sunglasses and calls Maru by his name. With a smile, he holds out his hand and invites him to work with him. He says that although 300 billion is a lot of money, Maru can earn even more if he works with him, as everything is already set up. Junho then turns and leaves, telling Maru to get back to work as soon as he recovers. Lying on the floor, Maru wonders why all of this happened. He thinks that if there was a reason for everything, Junho could have just explained the situation. Hearing the question, Junho turns around and says the answer to that is obvious. With a manic smile, he claims that this way is much more fun. Maru remains on the floor, staring at the ceiling, completely exhausted and defeated. A small smile begins to form on his face as he lets out a weak laugh. Suddenly, the laugh turns into a hysterical and uncontrolled cackle. Junho turns around with a satisfied expression and asks if Maru has to admit it was fun. Maru slowly gets up, agreeing that it was fun, but also completely ridiculous. He faces Junho and confesses that he saw him as his mentor, his father, and his savior. Maru runs his hands through his hair in disbelief and asks if all of this was just for his entertainment. He accuses him of messing with his family just for fun and then corrects himself from calling him Chief Hong. Maru then renames him, calling him Hong, the pig. With bloodshot eyes full of rage, he grabs his own hair and declares that now he will butcher him. Hong Junho clenches his fist, furious, and asks if Maru just called him a pig. With his body enveloped in a red aura, he raises his axe and challenges him to come at him with his ultimate weapon. Meanwhile, Sungchan approaches and asks Chief O what he's doing on the ground. He replies that he's writing his will and tells his men to do the same quickly. Chief O explains that no one has ever survived after seeing Hong Junho fight seriously. His conclusion is chilling. They're all going to die today. Junho swings his axe, shattering the ground, but Maru leaps back and narrowly dodges. Maru senses another attack coming his way. Junho questions him, saying he was proud of him and asks if he's forgotten everything he taught him. He charges with the axe, yelling that he'd already warned him not to retreat in a straight line. Suddenly, something catches his attention, and he stops. He grips the handle of the axe tightly. Then he lunges into the air, knife in hand, as Junho realizes he waited for the straight-line attack to stab him in the face. Junho questions if he was aiming for the very axe that had pinned him to the ground earlier. With a defiant smile, Junho admits that challenges are good. Maru presses the knife towards him, but Junho says that to cut his face, he'd have to get closer. In a swift, precise move, he grabs the tip of the knife. He ends up slashing Junho's chin. With another move, he tries to cut him even deeper. Chief O's men shout in shock, unable to believe that Hong Junho has been wounded. Junho stands still for a moment, without reacting. Chief O stares at the scene, stunned by Maru's ability to adjust his distance and the knife in the blink of an eye. Junho notices him running in his direction and calls him Little Maru. He then lunges forward and lands a brutal kick on Maru, saying he was just playing around but was attacked with killing intent. Maru remains standing, as Junho realizes he truly wants to kill him. He warns that if Maru keeps coming at him like that, he'll drive the axe into his chest. Then, without hesitation, he stomps hard on Maru's chest, deciding he has no choice but to kill him. The impact throws Maru violently backward. Junho approaches slowly, in no hurry. He seems surprised that little Maru managed to withstand the blow. Next, he rests the axe behind his neck. With a sadistic grin, he flexes his muscles and asks what he thinks of this. He taunts him, asking if Maru knows which way the axe will come from, left or right. "Or from above!" he yells as he raises the weapon for the final blow. Maru's eyes widen in pure concentration. At the last second, Maru blocks the axe with a sledgehammer. Junho takes a step back, confused by what just happened. He asks angrily if Junho knows what you call the act of slaughtering a cow. Then, he attacks repeatedly, shouting for the cow to die. Chief O watches the scene in horror, recognizing Maru's weapon. He recognizes the sledgehammer technique as Chief by X, and the knife strikes are identical to Chief Choi's. Maru switches his grip on the knife with agility. Next, he uses the precise slashes of Miss Kim. Chief O realizes, shocked, that Maru has copied the techniques of everyone he's faced, and wonders if Hong Junho could actually lose. Junho is forced to retreat, covered in cuts. He grinds his teeth, furious, and lets out a curse. In an instant, he grabs Maru by the neck and asks if he really sees him as a pig. Junho starts punching him relentlessly, yelling that he treated him well and cleaned up all his messes in Japan. He continues to beat him, questioning if this is how Maru dares to see him. With a final punch, he throws him aside, asking if this is how he repays his kindness by becoming his enemy. Junho picks up his axe and warns Maru not to be mistaken, as he hasn't used his full power even once. Maru's blood drips onto the floor. Though exhausted, Maru gets up, and Junho asks if he really wants to go all the way. He raises the axe and declares, "I can't let you die." Upside down, Maru reflects that if he's going to die anyway, he should just kill his opponent first. He questions if he should even think about dying, after abandoning all his memories to get his revenge. To avoid hesitating, he forced himself to throw away all the positive feelings he had for Junho. He went so far as to abandon his emotions to see people as objects, all so he could win. Maru thought he had thrown everything away, but he realizes there's still something he hasn't discarded. The only thing he had left was his own life. He faces Junho, who prepares for the final blow with his axe. To win, he understands he'll need to throw away his own life along with his opponent's. He prepares to abandon his will to live and everything else. Then, Maru runs and leaps for the final attack. Suddenly, Kim Yang appears, shooting, and yells, asking if he wants to die. Furious, she declares she's going to stir up a real hornet's nest. Her eyes widen in pure shock as she sees something. The gun slips from her hand and falls to the ground. Hong Junho turns with a smile and asks if the little lady has finally arrived. Junho throws a key on the ground and tells Kim Yang that she'll find a safe in his office. He reveals that all of her contracts are inside, leaving her completely shocked. He then tells her that half of everything in there is his retirement money, and he instructs her to give the other half to Maru, before falling backward, lifeless. Maru stands over the body, calling out to him in a low voice. With tears of rage and pain, he clutches his knife and screams for him to attack him once and for all. In a flashback, a boy begs for his life. Junho mercilessly tears out one of his eyes. This is the story of a man who sits on a pile of bodies, a man who lived as the king of a pigsty, eating desperately. This breeding ground, called the pigsty, raised humans like pigs in a special way. First, to push them to the extreme, they kept them hungry. They withheld food to bring them to the brink of starvation, as hunger made them violent. Hunger so intense, it turned anyone into a beast. Then, they would give them food one last time, and watch the carnage. A desperate hand sinks into the slop. The system was simple. Watch the one pig that survived this hell and see how he gets all the food for himself. But no matter how much a pig runs, in the end, it's just a pig, and it will be tamed with even stronger violence, like the repeated sessions of starvation, a brutal and heinous violence that shaped the man he became. Only a few pigs survived the harsh selection, protecting their food with their own lives. Then, these selected pigs are sent on missions. He approaches a mob boss and asks if he's the Mapo Sea of Blood, catching the man off guard. In the blink of an eye, he plunges a knife into the man. The fate of these pigs is already sealed from the start. The boss's henchmen stare at him, shocked and furious. They are raised to fight, and in the end, to be slaughtered. But sometimes, something different happens. The pig that should have been slaughtered returns alive. Even when they come back, they are met with a gesture of contempt. The pig doesn't become human again. It just returns to its cage. He sits alone in his cell, reaffirming to himself that he is a pig. He believes he must live and die as a pig, but fate wouldn't allow it. He was sent to his death countless times, but always came back alive. And as he kept surviving, a new thought began to emerge. A question started to echo in his mind. He would look at the pile of bodies and wonder if he was killing humans or pigs. And as always, he played his part, now wearing a suit and carrying his axe. One day, upon returning, he was met by a group of men who commented on his arrival. The man in glasses introduced him to a woman, saying this was the pig he had been talking about. Faced with Junho's indifference, the man became visibly irritated. He struck him with a baton, screaming about how a lowly pig dared to ignore him in front of others. Junho's eyes filled with rage as he realized the hypocrisy of the one who raised them like animals. The man apologized to the chairwoman, saying the bastard was skilled but had no manners. Suddenly, she slaps him, scolding him for interrupting their discussion. She looks at him and states that he isn't a human either, but a pig, leaving him speechless. At that moment, Junho realized that if he was no different from an animal, then he would take the reins of his own destiny. He stood up and lunged at the man. The others tried to stop him, yelling that he couldn't touch that person, but he raised his axe and furiously declared that he would become the king of pigs. The chairwoman watches him, surprised by his audacity. Without hesitation, he buries the axe in the man's head. The man drops to the floor, dead. Junho picks up the sunglasses from the corpse. He puts them on and tells her that if she wants to use animals, she'd better use the best there is. She stares at him with a serious, unreadable expression. With a subtle smile, she agrees to give him a chance. And that's how his kingdom was born, an empire of butchers. His life was all about raising and training pigs. During these monotonous days, he met Yang, and he also met Maru. Spending time with them, he began to dream of the day he too could live as a human being. But that hope was cut short by a cruel order, making him question the meaning of dispose of. He yelled into the phone, furious, asking why he should dispose of them after cleaning up Maru's mess and making a deal with the Japanese. The chairwoman's voice sounds cold and final, stating that they've done well so far. She warns him that if he doesn't dispose of them, he will be disposed of along with them. Then, she threatens him, asking if he'd rather be sent back to the pigsty. With a clenched fist, he reaffirms to himself that he is a pig, and for a pig, orders are absolute, but he still wanted to save Maru. He thought that if he brought Maru into the underworld, the chairwoman would change her mind. But everything changed when Maru himself started to see him as a pig, and that he could not bear. To be seen that way by him was unacceptable. He admits he thought about killing him as ordered. In the end, however, he just couldn't kill him. He saw the difference between a pig living without purpose and a human risking their life to protect what is important. And seeing Maru like that, he felt ashamed of himself. In that moment, he wished to become a human. He wanted to be seen as a human. He leans in and tells Maru to look. With a fatal wound in his chest, he asks if, in the end, he is a human. With a smile of acceptance, he tells Maru that he must live as a human until the very end. This is the story of the king of the pigsty, the story of a man who died as a human being. A shadow falls over Junho's lifeless body. Choi Ki-jung kneels beside him and laments, saying he wishes he had been the one to kill him. He is the senior managing director of World Security, an imposing and dark figure. He forces Junho's eye open. Ki-jung holds his eye and declares that he's taking back what was stolen from him. He moves away from the body, coldly wishing him to rest in peace. On the phone, he confirms the situation to Chairwoman Yu. He informs her that Junho is dead and that the safe under his responsibility has disappeared. Facing an army of men, he reassures her, telling her not to worry. As a van drives down a dark, rainy road, Ki-jung concludes that it doesn't matter where Junho's killer runs. He promises he will tear him apart alive, and that he will bring the safe back. The scene cuts back to Choi Ki-jung, who is on the phone with President Yu. He looks at a screen, confirming the information he just received. Through the security cameras, he reports that Jun-ho is dead and that the safe under his watch has disappeared. Ki-jung reassures her, saying it doesn't matter where Jun-ho's killer runs. With a single punch, he shatters the screen and swears he'll tear him apart alive. He then concludes, promising to bring the safe back. Back at the scene, the security camera turns towards them. Maru approaches Jun-ho's body and calls out his name. With his face soaked in furious tears, he screams for him to get up and fight. Kim Yang thinks in shock that he wasn't this strong just a moment ago. She wonders how he could suddenly become so powerful as he walks towards her. Her instincts scream at her, and her hand tightens on her hidden weapon. Her intuition shouts for her to avoid this man at all costs. Terrified by his aura, she lets out a tense breath. With her hands in the air, Kim Yang surrenders. Maru presses the knife against her and asks why she's in such a hurry to die. At that moment, Chief O's men throw themselves in front of her, yelling for them not to fight each other. Sung-chan desperately explains that with Director Hong dead, they're all dead men anyway, so there's no reason to fight. Il-bong adds that if they stick together, their chances of survival increase. They form a human shield around her, protecting her from Maru. Maru then asks with a serious look where his little sister is. The men look at Kim Yang and suggest she must have taken her. She thinks for a moment, and realizes he's talking about Hanaru. She starts explaining that Mr. Hong sent her to feed the girl, so she took her to an expensive Chinese restaurant. But the company card was maxed out and she had to leave to get a new one. The scene shows her remembering the crushed cake and how, filled with rage, she fought with her butcher comrade, the one responsible for the accident. And then, in the middle of the chaos with Mr. Hong, she completely forgot about her. With her face covered in tears, she confesses that she committed a sin worthy of death. On the edge of the moving van, Kim Yang prepares to jump and asks if she should leap from there. The men explain they need to split up to avoid complicating the route, encouraging her to show off her North Korean Special Forces skills. Terrified, she turns to Maru and says she can't do it. With a cold, authoritative look, he simply orders her to jump. She leaps from the van, screaming a vow that she will complete her mission. While the other men praise her, impressed, Maru remains silent. He thinks to himself that he needs to save his mother and Naru, and he must act fast because the world group is coming. Meanwhile, at Maru's house, Detective Han Tae-sik analyzes the crime scene and finds no victims. He observes the blood on his glove, finding it strange that there's no body at the scene. Outside, another officer calls to him, reporting that the residents were evacuated after hearing loud noises from the basement. Officer Lee worries about what might have happened to Maru, but Detective Han tells him it's time to go. The young officer asks where, and they leave the crime scene. The detective reveals they're heading to the hospital where Maru's mother is admitted. At the hospital, a nurse informs Maru and Il-bong that the patient was already discharged by a group of men in suits. Il-bong frantically calls Kim Yang, and Maru hears him shout into the phone, shocked to learn that Naru isn't at the restaurant. Maru grinds his teeth in fury as he realizes men in suits also took his sister. He dashes down the hospital corridor, yelling that they'll definitely use his mother and sister as hostages. Il-bong quickly concludes that the only secure, restricted place in the city center where they could take them is the World Security Headquarters. The two of them stop suddenly, shocked by the difficulty of the mission ahead. At that exact moment, the elevator doors open, and a group of men in suits steps out. Leading them is the imposing director Choi Ki-jung, walking with an intimidating presence. With a smirk, he says he didn't expect to run into him like this. The person he's speaking to is Detective Han Tae-sik, who stares back at him seriously. Ki-jung taunts him about constantly changing partners, and the detective retorts about how he got his promotion. Han then asks what a gangster like him is doing in a hospital, and Ki-jung replies that he just came for a visit. As he passes him, Ki-jung advises him to take good care of the people around him. The detective watches him walk away, muttering that it was a waste of time and that he should worry about himself. Suddenly, one of his men runs towards him, yelling that there's a huge problem. Panting, he tries to report that Maru just went back to the hospital room and that he left him. Ki-jung silences him with a gesture, showing he's already aware of the situation. He bites his own lip to stifle a scream of pain as Ki-jung warns him about the detective's presence. With a muffled cry, the man writhes in pain, learning the hard way not to speak carelessly. The detective then turns to Ki-jung and says that instead of worrying about others, he should take care of his own subordinates. He threatens him, saying his next visit will be to his funeral, and he'll make a generous donation. Intrigued, Ki-jung wonders how Maru managed to move faster than them, suspecting he might have help. Meanwhile, Maru and Il-bong run into a man who greets them. A tall, well-dressed man approaches, saying he was waiting for them. He invites them into the car so they can talk. Maru stares at him, suspicious of the sudden appearance of another man in a suit. Fueled by rage, he lunges forward and asks if he's the one who took his mother and sister. The man calmly confirms it, and Maru's eyes fill with fury. Surprisingly, the man bows in apology for his rudeness. He then gestures towards the car where a woman is sitting, and explains that the president will clarify all the details. The woman introduces herself as Shim Yun-young, the president of the Charlotte Hotel, and greets Maru. Maru angrily interrupts her, demanding to know where his family is. Suddenly, another door opens and Sung-chan steps out, saying everything will be explained. Maru and Il-bong look back, completely shocked by his appearance. Il-bong, surprised, asks why they're coming from there, and Seung-chan simply greets him as manager. He explains that they acted because they received information that the World Group had started to move, and in response, forces hostile to the group asked Charlotte for help. Seung-chan apologizes for the surprise, but Maru confronts him for taking his family without permission. With eyes full of fury, he asks how they are any different from the World Group. Seung-chan quickly tells him to look closely at the tablet. He shows that the World Group's tracking team has just arrived at the hospital, stating that if it weren't for Charlotte, his family would have already been found. Maru stares at the screen, silently processing the information. His gaze shifts to Seung-chan, still suspicious of the situation. Shin Yun-young invites Maru into the car. With a subtle smile, she promises they will take him to his family. The Charlotte Group operates in the pharmaceutical, petrochemical, hotel, and financial sectors. Meanwhile, the World Group focuses on the defense, trade, distribution, construction, and security industries. Although both presented themselves as major corporations, behind the scenes, they were engaged in a fierce battle. A single man, with his overwhelming brute force, put an end to this long war. As a result, the Charlotte Group was defeated and split into two factions: those who wanted to hand over the group to the World Group, and those who, like her, wanted to protect and maintain what was left. Maru, impatient, asks what this has to do with him and tells her to get to the point. Il-bong intervenes, pointing out that despite Director Hong's death, the World Group still holds overwhelming power. Yun-young explains that even though he killed the director, it would be nearly impossible to protect his family and escape the group alone. She says that with Charlotte's wealth and information power, they can help him succeed. She looks at him, about to make her proposal. Maru looks back at her, visibly confused by the direction of the conversation. Suddenly, a van violently collides with the car they are in. The driver of the luxury car loses control of the wheel from the impact. The convoy of vehicles skids dangerously on the road. In the back of the van, the men are thrown against each other with the force of the crash. The luxury car is thrown to the other side of the road. After the collision, the vehicles come to a stop on opposite sides of the lane. Shin Yun-young opens her eyes, feeling the pain from the accident. She realizes Maru protected her with his own body during the impact. He then lets her go and asks if she's okay. Maru looks outside and asks if it was the World Group's men, but she denies it. She explains that since Charlotte is divided, her older brother Shim Young-yu is trying to kill her to hand over the group, and she believes he sent the troops now approaching them on the road. With her hand on his face, she proposes a deal. The Charlotte Group will protect his family from the World Group. In return, she asks him to act as her sword for a while. Maru stares at her in silence, weighing the proposal. He then turns to the car door and says she'll have to prove it to him. Maru challenges her to prove she has the power to protect his family, and then he promises he will become her sword. Meanwhile, elsewhere, Director Choi Kajung gets out of a car. He comments about piglets as he approaches a location. As he heads towards the stairs of a large temple, he notices the place has been grandly prepared to receive him. He then orders the gates to open. Inside, a funeral is being held for Hong Jun-ho. A long line of men in suits pays their respects. A woman with her face in the shadows greets him, and he bows in respect. She is Yu Dain, the president of the World Group, and she asks about those responsible for Director Hong's death. Kijung reports that one of them escaped, but they found the other one. The scene cuts to Kim Yang, who worries that her comrade won't leave her alone. She laments having no money for food, thinking her butcher comrade would have rescued her if the mission had failed. In reality, she's at a Chinese restaurant where the staff is terrified. She is surrounded by an army of men in suits and realizes she has no choice but to fight. With her eyes shadowed, Kim Yang faces her captors and calls them "my sweet South Korean comrades." Then, with a mocking smile, she asks how much money they have. Meanwhile, on the road, Maru gets out of the car and faces the approaching group of men alone. Their leader, Jo Byung-ho, promises his men promotions and then questions why an anchovy like Maru is there. He pulls out a knife and orders his men to take care of the mess. They surround Maru, mocking him and asking if he's Shim Yun-young's lover. One of them approaches to taunt him, but is taken down. Maru then moves quickly, taking out other men around him. He wonders if it has always been this easy. With a precise strike, he finishes another enemy and begins to understand something. He's finally realizing the true strength of the people he has faced so far. Maru stops for a moment, surrounded by fallen bodies, understanding the difference in power. The leader Joe, terrified, pulls out a long knife and yells, asking who the hell he is. He lunges forward in a desperate attack, demanding an answer. In a swift motion, his hand is split. The leader, Joe Byung-ho, screams in pain and shock, staring at his hand, but then his other hand is cut off. Clutching his hand, the leader curses him in agony. Maru turns to him, preparing for the final blow. With a quick move, he silences the leader's scream, and then, with a precise cut, he finally finishes his opponent. Shin Eun-young approaches him from behind. He turns and says that he has proven himself, and now it's her turn. Maru faces her and demands she prove she has the power to protect his family. He looks at the destroyed car and asks how they'll get to his mother now, and if they'll have to walk. She smiles and reveals she's already called for transport, as a helicopter appears in the sky. Eun-young reminds him that he asked her to prove her power. She then invites him to go, and reveals their destination, the funeral of the person he just killed. Outside the temple, a mantra is recited about the vows that bind the heavens to this sacred realm. Inside, a monk continues the prayer, declaring his repentance for all evil acts born of greed, anger, and ignorance. The head monk, accompanied by his disciples, then chants to the Buddha to purify the obstacles of karma. As the prayer continues, President Yu Dine solemnly lights an incense stick in honor of Hong Joon-ho. Director Choi Ki-jung watches the ceremony until one of his subordinates hurries over. The man informs him in a low voice that there's a big problem outside. Ki-jung then heads down the temple stairs to investigate. Outside, he is told that Maru has appeared on site. Meanwhile, at the Chinese restaurant, Kim Yang searches the bodies of the defeated men, complaining that the World Group emissaries are always causing trouble. Sitting on the pile of bodies, she counts the little money she found and wonders why they have so little. Just then, she gets a call from Chief O, who asks where she is and tells her about the funeral. Shocked, she repeats the news. Maru is at Manager Hong's funeral. Outraged, she yells into the phone, complaining that they went to eat yukgaejang without her. Back at the temple, Maru and Eun-young's assistant are confronted by a huge army of men in suits. One of them glares at him and asks if that's Maru, the bastard who killed Manager Hong. One man wonders if Maru knows where he is, while another, furious, calls for a toolkit to offer him up to Manager Hong's spirit. Eun-young's assistant asks Maru how he's feeling, and he asks, about what? She then asks if he isn't nervous, but he says no, since she was the one who said she'd prove herself. He remarks that in that case, she should be able to handle this situation. A burly man grabs him by the suit and confronts him, asking if he's the bastard who killed Manager Hong. He is Kim Min-seok, Vice Director of World Trade, and he questions why Maru is walking around with Charlotte's girl. He steps closer and asks if Charlotte was backing him from the start. He calls him a filthy bastard and implies it was all a setup, but he's cut off by a voice. Annoyed, he turns and asks who dares to interrupt him. To his surprise, someone yanks his cheek hard, making him scream. It's Director Choi Ki-jung, who kicks another man aside and orders everyone to clear the way. He apologizes for Maru having to deal with his underlings and acknowledges that killing Manager Hong was no small feat. He then introduces himself as Choi Ki-jung, Executive Director of World Security, and promises to treat him with the respect he deserves. However, other men approach and tell Director Choi not to have all the fun himself. The President and Vice President of World Investment Securities arrive, and one of them wonders if capturing Maru would make him stronger than Manager Hong. The World Group executives argue over who will have the honor of fighting, with one of them declaring that Maru is his and the others can have what's left. Maru discreetly tries to draw a weapon, but his hand is stopped by Shin Eun-young, who steps forward. She walks confidently toward the group and questions if this is all World Livestock can do. One of the men retorts that their honor has been stained, but Eun-young cuts him off, saying he doesn't understand the glory of taking down the man who defeated Manager Hong. She explains that the idea is to avenge the murdered manager and claim the glory, but she questions the meaning of everyone ganging up on a single man, and whether the honor and glory they seek aren't lost in the process. She reminds them that Maru fought Manager Hong on equal terms and won honorably. Then she provokes them, asking if ganging up finally gives them the confidence they lacked when Manager Hong was alive, which enrages them. Kim Min-seok gets angry and declares he won't tolerate anyone touching his people. Eun-young then makes her final threat, warning that if they kill Maru here, they should prepare for a war. She concludes that there will be no honor, glory, or profit, and challenges anyone confident enough to bear those losses to step forward. With a contemptuous look, she calls them damned loudmouths. The executives fall silent, visibly intimidated by her threat. Maru watches her, surprised and impressed by her display of power. A voice begins to clap slowly. It's President Yu Dain, who approaches and addresses Shin Eun-young. She remarks that, just like her father, Eun-young is good with words. Then, she turns to Maru and stares at him, and identifies him as the man who killed manager Hong. She studies him with a curious gaze and a faint smile. Her smile widens, revealing a predatory expression. Yu Dain turns to leave with her men, and promises they will meet again. As she walks away, Maru asks who that woman is. Eun-young's assistant explains that she is Yu Dain, the president of the World Group, and warns him that she is the person he needs to be most careful of. The assistant then takes off her high-heeled shoes, and the two of them walk barefoot through the temple. They finally stop in front of Hong Joon-ho's funeral altar. His portrait shows him with a wide, defiant smile, even in death. Facing Hong Joon-ho's portrait, Maru states that he didn't come to mourn his death. He remembers his mother's suffering, and says that what he did to his family is unforgivable. With the image of his own rage in his mind, he confesses that he wanted to kill him with his own hands, but he wonders why, when he had the chance, Joon-ho let himself be killed by him. He recalls the last words of his former mentor. In the end, I'm only human too, aren't I? And then he questions if the final advice, you must live your life as a human until the end, was really meant for him. He bows in a gesture of deep respect, asking why he died for him and why he said those words. Maru acknowledges that he might not know the answer right now, but he believes that if he can survive, one day he will find what he's looking for. He asks Joon-ho not to worry. He stands up with new determination and swears that with everything he learned from him, he will kill everyone and survive. Outside the temple, Shin Eun-young calls out to him. With the wind blowing through her hair, she declares that from the moment he walks through that door, he will be her sword. Maru shows a faint smile of acceptance. He and Eun-young's assistant then walk away from the temple, under the light of the rising sun. The helicopter blades spin rapidly, preparing for departure. From the temple courtyard, director Choi Ki-jung watches the aircraft take off. With a cigarette between his lips, he mutters Maru's name. He flicks the cigarette away and adds Shin Eun-young's name to his list. As the cigarette falls, he runs a hand through his hair. With a manic grin, he declares that things are about to get interesting. The imposing facade of the Hotel Charlotte rises in Seoul. A week later, Shim Eun-young walks through the lobby as employees bow in reverence. A subordinate hurries over saying there's a big problem with those people. He explains that they're trying to break into the safe again. Eun-young sighs, remembering they are Maru's colleagues. She asks them to handle the situation discreetly, but another employee interrupts her with a new problem. He points out that the woman has started eating the guests' food. Despite the chaos, their presence has brought a sense of peace and normalcy to the hotel. Two men bow as the president approaches the VIP room door. She and her assistant enter the room. Inside, Maru is with his sister, Ha Naru, next to a hospital bed. Shim Eun-young smiles and greets Ha Naru. The young woman pulls her aside and asks if something is wrong, since her brother won't tell her anything. Eun-young quickly turns her face toward Maru. Across the room, Maru confirms he would never tell her. Maru asks his mother to lie down, but she feels uncomfortable in Shim Eun-young's presence. Eun-young approaches Ha Naru and reassures her, promising to do her best to help. Their mother thanks her and asks her to please take care of her son. Eun-young holds her hand and tells her not to worry, as Maru has been a great help. Suddenly, the assistant enters the room, warning that there is a huge problem. She sighs and asks who caused trouble this time. Her expression changes completely upon hearing the answer. The man reveals that Vice President Shim Young-yu, her brother, has arrived at the hotel. Meanwhile, outside a police station, Detective Han Tae-sik stands before an investigation board, confirming manager Hong's death. He recalls that Hong was the prime suspect in the distribution of drug-laced ribs. The investigation also revealed a burned-down Japanese facility and a missing witness. Now, members of the World Organization are looking for a man. The detective stares at Maru's photo in the center of the board, questioning his role in all of this. Just then, another detective runs into the room, saying he has new information. The younger detective shows a photo on his phone and reveals they've identified the woman with Maru. Han Tae-sik reacts with surprise upon learning it is Shim Eun-young, the president of the Hotel Charlotte. Back in the hotel room, Eun-young faces the situation. Furious at her brother's actions, he turns around with a woman on his lap and notices his sister's presence. They watch Eun-yu at a table with other women, demanding the president serve him a drink. Maru leans forward and coldly asks if he should kill him. She stops him, grabbing a bottle of wine and asserting her authority as president. With a smile, she decides that since the vice president wishes it, she will serve him a drink herself. Red wine begins to pour from the bottle's neck. She pours the entire contents over her brother's head, sarcastically asking if it tastes good. Yoon continues to pour the drink with a sadistic smile on her face. She states that she turned a blind eye when he submitted to the World Organization, and now she confronts him for openly mingling with their dogs. Sitting on a nearby sofa, Executive Director Choi Ki-jung takes a sip of his drink and calls her rude. Yoon places the bottle on the table, saying she understands his bitterness, as their father intended to pass the group to her. She confronts him for coveting the president's position and bringing enemies inside while their father is still alive. With disdain, she asks if he can no longer distinguish right from wrong. She then states that this is precisely why their father named her his successor. Her brother, Shim Young-yu, mutters her name, his face dripping with wine. Suddenly he licks his lips and says the wine is delicious. A waste to drink alone. He turns and offers the drink to one of the women beside him. Then he violently grabs the woman's face. He forces her to drink from the bottle while shouting at her to obey. Yoon watches without expression as her brother yells that his order must be obeyed without question. Suddenly, he throws the bottle, which shatters on the wall next to her head. He approaches and accuses her of already seeing herself as the president, just because of their father's appointment. With a maniacal smile, he reminds her that their father is in a vegetative state, and she can't inherit anything until he dies. Yoon smiles subtly and advises him to fight all he wants, but to always be careful. She glares at him and warns that no matter what he's planning, she can do the same to him. Shim Young-yu points at his sister with a mocking laugh. From the sofa, director Choi Ki-jung lets out an exaggerated laugh. He sarcastically comments on how touching it is to see the siblings getting along so well. Yoon smiles and tells President Yoo Dain's dog to stay away, as this is a Charlotte group matter. Angrily, Choi Ki-jung crushes the glass in his hand. With a dark expression, he corrects her, emphasizing the title, Madam President Yoo Dain. He approaches and says the young president seems to have no manners. The moment he raises his hand to strike her, a blade appears in his path. Maru intercepts the blow with a kitchen knife, protecting Yoon. He turns to Choi Ki-jung and tells him to get out. With a furious glare, he threatens to kill him. The two face off, with Maru keeping the knife pointed at the director. Choi Ki-jung looks at his own hand, surprised to have been stopped and even injured in the process. He observes his own blood with a look of pure interest. As Maru glares at him, Choi Ki-jung concludes that he is far more interesting than he imagined. Choi Ki-jung licks the blood from his hand, accepting the challenge. With a manic smile, he decides it will be worth breaking him. Then he charges forward, yelling that it will be even more delicious to crush him. Maru blocks the attack with his knife, but his arms get cut in the process. He looks at his own wounds, not understanding how he was hit. Choi Ki-jung taunts him, telling him to show off the skills he learned from Junho. Maru realizes, shocked, that he was cut by the director's bare hands. He remembers Hong Joon-ho's monstrous strength. He knows Choi's strength is great, but it doesn't compare to his master's. With a quick spin, he adjusts the knife in his hand. He faces his opponent, confident he can win. Outside, hotel employees evacuate the area, apologizing for the disturbance. Shim Eun-young watches the scene, recognizing that although he stays in the shadows, Choi is a major force in the world group. She watches the exchange of swift blows, wondering if Maru can really beat him. During the confrontation, Choi Ki-jung dodges a strike and asks what that was, questioning if he also learned Choi Doyle's techniques. He attacks again, saying that won't be enough to satisfy him. Maru dodges and grabs a whiskey bottle from the table. He spins and attacks with the bottle, making Choi wonder if he also learned Baek Seoko's techniques. With a yell, Choi Ki-jung stops the blow with his bare hand, shattering the bottle. He uses the broken bottleneck to counterattack, admitting Maru is more interesting than he thought. Maru changes his grip on the knife, adapting quickly. He attacks with a series of quick slashes, and Choi questions if he also knows Kim Yang's techniques. Choi blocks the blade with his elbow, commenting that Hong Joon-ho must have cared a lot to teach him so many different skills. He dismisses the techniques as mere tricks and delivers a series of brutal blows to Maru's chest. The impact throws Maru backward, staggering. Choi Ki-jung lights a cigarette, finding the whole situation absurd. He takes a drag, wondering how someone with these skills managed to kill Joon-ho. As he reflects, Maru leaps onto a table to create distance. He launches himself from above, still convinced he can win, even if his opponent is stronger than Director Hong. Choi looks up, disappointed, as Maru realizes he needs space to execute his real plan. Choi Ki-jung tries to grab him in midair, scornfully asking if this attack is all he's got. He brutally strikes him in the side, declaring his disappointment. Maru falls to his knees, coughing from the impact of the blow. With the cigarette on his lips, Choi asserts that he didn't kill Junho, but that Junho let him kill him. He concludes that Junho must have been going senile to die for someone like him. Enraged, Maru yells and charges with his knife in hand. Choi raises his hand, saying he'll teach him what Junho couldn't. He stops Maru's attack with ease, grabbing his wrist. His hand grips Maru's chest with crushing force. With a single motion, he hurls him through the air, declaring that this is a real skill. Maru spits blood as he's thrown violently to the ground. Choi approaches, slightly surprised that he withstood the blow. He wonders if it was this spirit that made Junho like him so much. With difficulty, Maru pushes himself up and says he's also heard a lot about him. He taunts him, calling him a pathetic, one-eyed bastard, and mentioning how well-treated he used to be. Choi Kajung's expression darkens with pure rage. He attacks violently, kicking Maru in the chest and screaming. The blow sends Maru flying backward, spitting blood from the impact. Enraged, Choi hits him again, yelling and demanding to know what he knows about him. He roars that he should have been the one to kill Junho. As he beats Maru on the ground, he screams that he didn't deserve to kill him. Maru realizes he's completely outmatched in power, speed, experience, and skill. An image of his mother and sister in the hospital room flashes through his mind. He despairs, wondering how he can protect them if there are others as strong as Choi. Choi glares at him, asking what he should do. He prepares for a final blow, yelling for Maru to disappear if he can't get stronger. Across the room, Shim Young-yu celebrates and encourages Choi to kill him. He continues, promising the company's shares, but suddenly his voice trails off. A silhouette appears behind Young-yu, interrupting Choi's attack. Choi stares at the mysterious figure and comments that he's been seeing him frequently lately. With a cigarette in his mouth, Detective Han Tae-sik tells him not to worry and to carry on. He points a gun at Choi Kajung and states that he will also continue with what he planned. With the barrel of the revolver in the foreground, he warns that if Choi kills someone in front of the police, he will kill him too. Choi raises his hands in surrender as other officers arrive, sarcastically claiming he was just teaching his junior a few tricks. As he's escorted out, Shim Young-yu yells at the police, who decide to let him go since he's not today's target. Detective Han turns to Choi and comments that he seems to have aged. He then mentions that a kid managed to land a blow on him, and Choi looks down at his own chest, confused. He sees a bloody handprint on his shirt and begins to understand. He remembers the moment he punched Maru. Then he realizes that Maru used one of his own techniques immediately after seeing it. Choi is shocked to conclude that Maru copied all the skills, finding him an extremely interesting guy. He looks back, wondering if that was why Junho liked him so much. A police officer handcuffs Maru and starts reading him his rights. As he's led away by two officers, the detective informs him that he is under arrest. Maru faces the situation with an intense gaze, as he's informed that the charge is suspicion of murder. Shim Eun-young approaches Maru and calls his name as he's being restrained by the police. She promises to get him out of there as soon as possible and tells him not to worry. Maru simply thanks her and asks her to take care of his mother and Naru. In the distance, Choi Ki-jung remarks that Maru still worries about his family and has a long way to go before he's like Junho. With a smile, he wonders if it wouldn't be better to just tear apart the Charlotte staff and his family. Maru then turns and asks if his name is Choi Ki-jung, saying that even if he has to die, he promises to tear him apart with his own hands. Choi just replies that he can't wait for him to get out, watching as he's taken away by the guards. Suddenly, Chief Oh and his men arrive and ask Director Shim what's happening, since Maru has been arrested. Elsewhere, Yu-dine demands that Kim Yang go save Maru immediately. Shim Eun-young explains that the police ignored the problems caused by Director Shim Young-yu and arrested only Maru, suggesting that World has insiders. Yu-dine questions why they should save that butcher, complaining that she lost her job and was hunted down because of him. Chief O's men protest, saying they've been through a lot together and need to help him. She retorts that if he were dead, everyone would be comfortable, but they shout back, that's all the more reason to save him. They reveal that it's thanks to Maru that she can eat as much as she wants at Charlotte, leaving Yu-dine surprised. Kim Yang touches Shim Eun-young's shoulder, who asks if what they said is true. Yu-dine asks if she can only eat because of that butcher pal, and Shim Eun-young confirms it. She then reveals that she treated her well because she was part of Maru's group. Yu-dine reacts, realizing she didn't know this information. One of the men asks where she's going, but Yu-dine shoves him aside and tells them to shut up. She then turns and declares that she will bring Hamaru back. The scene cuts to a police station at dusk. Inside an interrogation room, Maru is sitting across from Detective Han. Maru considers that while Shim Eun-young will get him out, Choi won't just stand by. The detective comments that he's changed a lot since the first time he saw him. Han then questions him about being involved in both the drugged ribs case and a murder. He explains they found traces of blood from World Livestock employees at his house, and that his boss, Director Hong, was killed. The detective directly asks what his relationship with World is. Putting out a cigarette, he asks Maru to say something, claiming he wants to help him, but he concludes by asking how he could help someone with the face of a man who's killed dozens of people. Suddenly, Superintendent An Kiju enters the room with a tray, complaining that Detective Han hasn't fed the suspect. An insists that humans need to eat to live, but Han just tells him to leave the food and go. He then whispers that the mayor is furious they arrested Maru with a weapon, but no concrete evidence. An tells the detective to let the suspect eat while he watches him, and Maru accepts the food. Han leaves the room, asking the superintendent to look after Maru, as he'll be back soon. As soon as the door closes, An comments on what a tense man the detective is. He turns to Maru and tells him to relax, as his superior helped him get there. An offers the food, which he says is restaurant quality, and offers to feed it to him. In a meeting room, Yu-Dane calls the situation ridiculous in front of her subordinates. She criticizes one of her men for being tasked with bringing someone back, only to get arrested for a public brawl, and she scolds another, the vice president, for flirting with female employees and lowering their corporate value. The chairwoman of the World Group then asks if the two of them want to die by her hands. She explains that the problem at the Charlotte Hotel made the media question Chairwoman Shim's abilities, making it difficult for her to act. Yu-Dane orders Vice President Shim to take control of the board of directors, and he agrees. She also orders Director Choi Ki-jung not to interfere, because if he lets his emotions control him, he'll make mistakes. Yu-Dane stares him down and asks if he's dissatisfied. Back in the interrogation room, An holds Maru and suggests they have some fun. Maru realizes the superintendent is also part of the World Group. An confirms that he's a quick one, but then he questions what he can do with that information. 3 men walk down a hallway that Superintendent An cleared out, and where he turned off all the cameras. Their leader states that no one will know what happens here for the next 30 minutes. He opens the door, remarking that a powerful group should use its power this way, and questioning why it was so difficult for Director Choi. Upon entering, the man complains about the smell of blood and asks why it's so dark. He sees a seated figure and questions if it's Maru, wondering where Superintendent An went. The man grabs the person's shoulder and tells them to wake up. He says the chairwoman is waiting, but the person's head lolls back, revealing it to be Superintendent An, slumped and bloody in the chair. The group's leader looks to the side, shocked by what he sees. One of the men checks An's body and comments that he killed a superintendent in the police station, noting the blood is still warm. The leader lights a cigarette and deduces he couldn't have gotten far, ordering them to find him first. He then addresses his army of men, telling them to find him before the other flies in the group get involved. On a busy street, he authorizes them to cut off his legs. Maru walks through the crowd as the voice continues, allowing them to cut him in half as well. The only condition is that they bring him back still breathing. Kim Yang puts on a police uniform and wonders if she really has to do this. She puts on her cap, grumbling that if it weren't for the buffet at Charlotte's, she wouldn't care if he died. Walking down a hallway, she calls him an annoying bastard, wondering if she's his mother who has to do everything. She then decides she'll crush his head and make it all look like an accident. Standing in front of the last interrogation room, she announces that judgment time has come. Kim Yang then extends her baton and leaps to deliver a blow with her baton of relentless justice. She tells him to come here and put his head out, but she finds Maru holding a bloody lunchbox lid. He's holding An Kiju by the collar and asks how she got there. She calls him a crazy bastard for killing a detective inside a Republic of Korea police station. Maru explains that the detective was a lackey for the World Group, and that his people were already on their way. He decided to frame them for it, since he couldn't let it slide, and says he's glad she arrived just in time. He then asks her to make the police believe it was the World Group's doing, since it wouldn't be hard for someone from there. Kim Yang grabs him, yelling that she came to help because of Charlotte's buffet, and now he expects her to clean up his mess. Kim Yang screams that she refuses, even if it kills her, but stops when she hears the word Hanwoo. Maru says that's nothing compared to crossing the border, and promises to buy her an all-you-can-eat unlimited 2+ Hanwoo course. She starts drooling, questioning if he thinks he can buy her with capitalist temptations, and Maru adds free lifetime meals at Charlotte's buffet. Kim Yang immediately shakes his hand and accepts the deal, telling him to leave everything to her. She gives a thumbs up from the door, stating she'll take these kinds of deals from now on, while Maru tells her to clean everything up and call him. He then states he's on his way to Charlotte's. Meanwhile, the group's leader believes Maru hasn't gone far, and that the other members are also looking for him. He turns to his men and orders them to find him first. The leader yells for them to bring him back breathing, no matter the condition, and they all agree. Hiding near the ceiling, Kim Yang thinks that was a close call and that they arrived faster than she expected. She notices Captain Kim is there and laments that the person she hates most has shown up. Kim Yang considers finishing him off right there, but she knows she couldn't cover it up. Instead, she decides she'll just cause a commotion so she can escape and get her Hanwoo. Suddenly, Captain Kim calls her name and strikes her. The impact throws her to the ground. Kim Yang gets up and comments that he noticed her, but Captain Kim replies that her scent is filling the room. He then asks about her outfit and if the police cosplay is for him, saying he can't wait for the bondage play. She calls him a perverted bastard and says it's amazing how he's still so disgusting. Captain Kim asks how he can stop his heart from feeling something for her, but then he notices the gun she's pointing at him. A gunshot echoes down the hall, and Detective Han turns, questioning the noise. Another officer suggests something probably fell, but Han remains silent. Han turns to Officer Lee, putting a cigarette in his mouth. He then simply tells the officer to run, leaving the young man confused. The detective pulls his phone from his jacket pocket and insists the officer follow him. He answers the call and introduces himself as Detective Han Tae-sik from the Narcotics and Organized Crime Investigation Department. On the other end of the line, Ha-Maru identifies himself, leaving the detective shocked. Han asks how he managed to call and if the gunshot was his doing, but Maru, already outside, tells him there's no need and that Kim Yang must be doing her job. The detective questions what he means by escaped, and Maru explains that the World Group infiltrated the interrogation room, but he survived thanks to Detective On. He concludes that them being at the station means there's a spy on the police force, and reveals he doesn't trust Detective Han yet. Maru says he can't tell if he's a World Group lackey or a proud member of the Korean police force. He then hangs up, stating he'll tell him everything once the detective earns his trust. A bullet hole appears in the hallway ceiling. Kim Yang fires into the air, shouting that the World Group is here to attack. Captain Kim calls her a crazy bitch and asks what she's talking about as he dodges. He then complains that he thought his balls were going to drop off. The captain stomps his foot, saying that if she's going to act so sexy, he's going to get really turned on and lunges to attack her. Kim Yang says she'd love to put a bullet in his head, but she has something more important to do and hits him with a punch. She tells him to be grateful he's only getting a punch to the mouth as she continues to strike him. She glares at him as the man says it's been a while since she did that. He claims it feels good, but then he grabs her fist mid-swing. Captain Kim holds her tight. He says that, compared to before, it's not that good, and throws her to the ground. Lying on the floor, Kim Yang calls him a crazy bastard and complains that he still uses that uppercut. She then glares at him and says if he's going to hit her, he should do it right. Captain Kim raises his foot, asking if she really thinks she can get away with just that, and tries to stomp on her as she rolls aside. She gets up quickly and calls him a dirty bastard. Then, Kim Yang pulls a large combat knife from her belt. She grips it tightly, saying, "This is going to be good." Captain Kim moves forward, asking what she's pulling out and declaring he's going to pull something out too. He reveals his own knife and asks if she can handle the size, but she just tells him to bring it on so she can cut him. Suddenly, a voice yells for them to stop. They both stop their attack, turning to see what's happening. Officer Lee appears at the end of the hall, pointing a gun and yelling, "Hands up, police!" He questions if they're fighting inside a police station and threatens to shoot if they move. Captain Kim asks if they're in America and why everyone is pointing a gun at him today. As the officer repeats the order not to move, the captain simply calls out to him. Captain Kim glares at the officer and orders him to lower his weapon. He then asks if an amateur who's never killed anyone before is going to threaten him, while the officer insists he'll really shoot. A shot hits him in the shoulder right in the middle of his sentence, daring the young man to shoot. Officer Lee stands frozen, confused about what just happened. Clutching his wound, the captain yells at him for actually shooting him and asks what he would have done if he'd hit his head. The young officer turns and claims he didn't shoot, but that the captain told him to. Suddenly, Detective Han appears behind him with a gun and asks what he's complaining about, leaving the officer surprised. Detective Han points his gun and asks if he wants to try that again. He says he can't believe they caused a scene in a police station in broad daylight, questioning if a detective can be fooled so easily. Han then curses those bastards from World and asks if he needs to put a bullet in his mouth to wake him up. He enters the interrogation room and finds Detective On's body. Officer Lee stammers that he's dead, but Han concludes he didn't die from the gunshot, but from being beaten with a blunt object. He then states that these gangster bastards from World have really crossed the line. Han asks who killed Detective On, and Kim Yang raises her hands, saying she's a police officer and was stopping the man from causing more trouble. The detective points the gun at Captain Kim and concludes it was him, since a cop wouldn't kill a colleague. The captain denies killing Detective On, realizing he didn't expect something like this to happen. Kim Yang then accuses him, stating that she saw that perverted bastard kill the detective, and try to get rid of her as a witness. He yells at her not to make shit up, saying that when he arrived, An was already... But Han cuts him off, tells him to shut up, and shoves the gun in his mouth. The detective warns that if he says another word, he'll pull the trigger, and calls him Kim Soo-hyun. He then announces that, from this moment on, Kim Soo-hyun is under arrest as a suspect in the murder of a police officer. While Kim Yang celebrates the decision, the captain is taken away, screaming that he didn't kill him and that they can't arrest someone without proof. Detective Han orders Kim Yang to write a report on the situation, and she agrees with a salute. But he stops her and asks a question. Han questions why her salute looks like that, sending her into a panic. He then orders his men to get her, and she flees, screaming that everyone in North Korea salutes that way. Kim Soo-hyun points at her and asks the detective if he believes him now that he's seen how suspicious she is. Han just points the gun at him and says he spoke more than one word. Elsewhere, Chief O's team discusses absurd ways to save Maru, like using a steamroller or missiles. Suddenly, Shim Yun-young answers a call and introduces herself. On the other end of the line, Ha Maru identifies himself, leaving her surprised. Her men ask if it's Mr. Maru, how he managed to call, and if he's okay. They celebrate, relieved that he escaped and that they trusted Kim Yang. Maru explains that he managed to get out of the station thanks to Kim Yang, but that she'll be a little late to clean up the mess. He continues, saying he was heading straight to the Charlotte Hotel, but he reveals he's being followed, and Yun-young asks where he is and how many are after him. He replies that he's in a busy area near the police station, and that for now, there are 3 or 4 people. He continues the call, explaining that he doesn't know how many more are around, and that it would be dangerous to lead them to her. Then, he grabs a piece of fruit from the back of a truck. He declares that he'll take care of everyone there, while Yun-young on the phone says she'll send backup immediately. But Maru hits one of the pursuers with the fruit and tells her not to, as Shim Yung-yu could go to the hotel. He tries to handle the situation without drawing too much attention and grabs another man by the neck, but he warns that the place is crowded and will soon become chaotic as he slams the man's head against the wall. When Yun-young asks what she should do, he replies that he'll handle the men. He then asks her to take care of crowd control and cleanup. A man pulls a knife from his belt, but Hamaru stabs him and asks them to send a vehicle so he can get out of there quickly. As the man falls to the ground, Yun-young agrees to handle his requests immediately. Maru notices they aren't attacking all at once, but are coming one by one to buy time. He decides that if he runs that way for a bit, all the hidden people will have to move. He then braces himself, determined to take care of them all. He runs to get back to the Charlotte Hotel and protect his family, dodging a man who attacks him with a large blade. Maru then uses his own knife to stab the assailant, leaving the man on the ground along with his axe. More pursuers corner him in a dead-end alley and order their men to get him, but the alley suddenly falls silent, with only a bloody weapon on the ground. Maru then walks out of the area, injured but still standing. He walks away from the fallen bodies, leaving Shim Yun-young to handle the rest. He just needs the car she sent to arrive. The window of a nearby vehicle then starts to open. The driver asks if he is Mr. Hamaru. With a smile, the man tells him to get in, as he'll take him to the Charlotte. His phone rings with a call from Shim Yun-young, and the driver comments that her timing is impeccable. Once inside the car, Maru answers and thanks Chief Shim for sending the vehicle at the perfect time. On the other end of the line, she sounds confused and asks if he's already in a car. Shim Yun-young informs him that her car is just leaving now and asks if he got confused. She asks if Mr. Maru is okay, but he just says he is and that he'll call back soon. Maru then hangs up the phone and glares at the driver in the rearview mirror. He asks if the man is also from World, and the driver flashes a sinister grin. The man then floors the accelerator. The car's tires screech on the asphalt and the vehicle speeds off. Back at the station, Detective Han lights a cigarette and wonders why, of all people, it had to be Hamaru. He questions why a high-ranking executive like Director Kim would attack a low-level employee, and if Maru is that big of a threat to World. Han looks out the window and considers the possibility of a mole in the police force, just as Maru had said. Outside, Kim Soo-hyun complains about that crazy bastard cop who wanted to shoot him multiple times. He flips off the police station, grumbling that there's nothing that can be done. Inside the building, Detective Han makes the same gesture and states that he has no choice but to go back to the old ways. The car speeds down a road at sunset. Maru starts to unbuckle his seatbelt and asks the driver if he wants them both to die. Maru kicks the driver and yells for him to die alone. He then hits him with repeated kicks to the face. The out-of-control car swerves violently down the road. Then, the vehicle crashes directly into a pole. The car stops moving, smoking from the impact. Maru gets out of the wrecked vehicle, holding his head and stating that he almost died, but he realizes he should be worried about something more important. He concludes that they shouldn't have known his route, yet they followed him to his exact location. Then he wonders if they anticipated his escape from the very beginning. He touches the collar of his jacket and finds a location tracker, realizing this is a huge problem. He concludes they were stalling to stop him from going back. Believing Shim Yun-young is in danger, he calls Kim Yang and asks where she is. On the phone, Yun-young asks if he's okay, and Maru asks if something urgent is happening. She confirms that yes, a lot is going on right now. The chairwoman explains that her father's condition worsened, forcing her to go to the hospital. While they were distracted, Shim Yun-gyu called a board meeting, and they're rushing over there. She then asks him to send his location so she can send someone, and tells him to get back safely. Maru grips the phone, understanding that the World Group and Shim Yun-gyu are working together. He knows that if Shim Yun-young falls, his own family will be in danger, and he needs to protect her. But looking at the tracker, he wonders how he could possibly do that. His hand clenches into a fist. Then he realizes there is a way, a plan. He calls Kim Yang and asks where she is now. Captain Kim Soo-yun punches one of his men in the face. He then kicks another subordinate, demanding to know how they failed to capture Ha-maru. His men listen as he asks why the tracker isn't working. He complains that Detective An should have planted the device without getting caught. But one of his men announces that they've recovered the signal from Maru's tracker. The subordinate hesitates to explain the situation and suggests the captain see for himself. Kim Soo-yun grabs the phone and wonders what Maru is doing. He sees the signal moving at high speed over the river on the map. He concludes the kid must have gone insane. Kim Yang furiously screams Ha-maru's name. He is soaring over the city in a wingsuit. At the meeting point, the officer grabs him by the collar and demands an explanation. Maru states that Yun-young is in danger, and that he'll keep his promise once she's safe. He hands her a helmet and a suit. The two get ready on the edge of a rooftop, and she asks what's next. Maru just tells her to run, and Kim Yang complains that he always tells her to do that. She leaps off the building, wondering if her life is a joke to him. As she glides through the city, the officer swears she'll kill him one day. The two of them approach the hospital. In the room, Shim Yun-young tells the doctors they assured her that her father was fine the day before. Her father lies unconscious on the bed wearing an oxygen mask. The chairwoman asks if anything unusual happened or if anyone different showed up. Then one of the doctors recalls that Vice Chairman Shim Yun-gyu was there for a visit. Eun-young realizes he used her father's health as an excuse to call the meeting. One of her guards informs her it's time to go, and she agrees. As they leave, she concludes his plan is to take over the board. She tries to open the room's door, stating she needs to get to the headquarters immediately, but the door is locked. Her men confirm they can't open it, and one of them points to the smoke seeping in from underneath. On the other side, her bodyguards are down as masked men try to seal the door and call for help. In the boardroom, Shim Yun-gyu complains that the CEO is late for her own meeting, considering it grounds for disqualification. With his feet on the table, he asks why they should wait for someone who's late. He then insists they all start the meeting immediately, but one of the directors considers that maybe they should wait a little longer since the meeting was called so suddenly. Other board members comment that Shim Yun-young is never late and wonder if something might have happened. Yun-gyu tells them to proceed, stating his presence is enough and they don't need her. A director confronts him, questioning how he can act that way after causing so many problems and the drop in stock prices. He also accuses him of rumors that he's trying to sell the group to World. The man calls him a troublemaker, and Yun-gyu lunges at him. He grabs the director by the collar, saying that hurts his feelings, and admits he's a troublemaker. Then he questions him about saying behind his back that he was handing the group over to World. Yun-gyu turns to the table and claims that Yun-young is the one getting close to World, not him. He declares he's the only one killing himself to save the group and asks why no one sees it. The other directors call him shameless and tell him to get a grip, since he lost the succession battle. Eun-gyu clicks his tongue in disapproval. He yells at the directors to shut up if they don't know what's really going on. He asks if they even know who is really ruining the group, claiming he's the only one who kept the group afloat with Charlotte chemicals. He then questions what Shim Yun-young has ever done, accusing her of contributing nothing. Before he can finish saying she's the real culprit, the boardroom door bursts open. One of the directors is thrown into the meeting room. Captain Kim Soo-hyun and his men arrive, confirming the tracker's signal led them there. He enters the room and asks if they're sure Ha-maru is there, seeing only a bunch of old men. The captain then suggests he might have escaped and orders them to check the signal again, but his subordinate shows him the phone, insisting the signal still indicates he's there. The captain concludes Maru must be hiding nearby and orders them to search everywhere. Outside, Maru clings to the building's wall while Soo-yun complains about his stealth. A man opens a closet door and is surprised to find someone inside. The man inside the closet stares back at him. The captain recognizes Vice Chairman Shim Yun-gyu and asks what he's doing there. Shim Yun-gyu explains he was in a meeting and Kim Soo-hyun reveals that Chairman Yoo sent him to take over the board. The directors accuse him of being a traitor and a puppet for World, confirming the rumors were true. One of them calls him trash for bringing the enemy into their company. Yoon-gyu then blames Kim for everything, but the captain just asks if he needs help. The vice chairman orders his men to forget the plan and destroy everything. In the hospital room, Shim Yoon-young is collapsed on the floor amidst the smoke. She realizes this was all Shim Yoon-gyu's plan to get rid of her. He went so far as to involve even her father. The chairwoman struggles to get up from the floor. She understands that they are coming. Their goal is to eliminate her once and for all. The room's door begins to shake from the impact outside. She wonders if this is her end, but a voice in front of her says it's not. The same voice states that nothing is over yet. Shim Yoon-young looks at the hand extended before her and recognizes him. Maru, standing at the door, claims that the end is something they will decide. The heart monitor displays stable vital signs. A doctor reports that, fortunately, the chairman's condition has stabilized, but he warns that due to his deteriorating health, they don't know how much time he has left. Yoon-young wonders how someone could kill their own father for the position of chairman. Maru asks if she plans to give up on everything, and she replies that it's already too late. He then assures her he will take care of her family no matter what. Holding her face, he tells her to pull herself together, as he has trusted her all along. He states that he'll do whatever it takes to protect her. He then asks her not to give up and to believe in him. He says that if they're going to the board meeting, she'd better dress for the occasion. She asks how the outfit looks, and he replies that it should do. While adjusting his suit, she remarks that the meeting must be over by now. She then suggests they should perhaps focus on the next shareholders meeting, but Maru reassures her, saying that if everything went as planned, the board meeting hasn't even started yet. Yoon-young questions him about his plan as a voice from the hallway orders to finish everyone off. In the meeting room, Shim Yoon-gyu's men are attacked and thrown around. Maru then reveals he had already sent Kim Yang to the location. On the floor, one of the company directors lies fallen and bloody. Shim Yoon-gyu approaches the body and asks if the man is really dead. He then argues with Captain Kim, who reminds him that he ordered his men to get them out of there. Amid the chaos, Kim Soo-hyun orders his men to find Ha-maru, as he must be somewhere. Yoon-gyu concludes the situation will create huge problems unless everyone there is killed, so he decides the solution is to kill everyone present in the room. He approaches Kim Soo-hyun and suggests a civilized conversation. Yoon-gyu warns him about the consequences if he tells Chairman Yoo that he ruined everything. The captain asks if that's a threat, but Yoon-gyu replies that it's a proposal. He then offers to help get rid of Executive Director Choi. Shim Yoon-gyu explains that if he becomes the chairman, he can easily help him. Soo-hyun calls him Chairman Shim and shakes his hand, asking what needs to be done. One of the company directors lets out a scream. Then Kim Soo-hyun kicks him, sending him flying through the boardroom window. The man falls past Kim Yang, who is on the outside of the building. She holds onto the wall, watching the bodies that continue to fall. Her position allows her to look into the room, trying to understand what's happening. Meanwhile, Shim Yoon-gyu assures the remaining directors they'll get home safely if they listen to him. He then shows them a consent form, asking them to support him with their shares and sign it. But one of the directors confronts him, questioning the document's validity. Yoon-gyu approaches and places a hand on the man's head, who asks what he's doing. He then grabs the director's hair forcefully. Next, he slams the man's face against the table to show what happens when he loses control. He yells at the other directors that he has nothing to lose and wouldn't mind killing all of them. Looking at the man on the floor, he remarks that people never listen to him. He then orders Kim Soo-hyun to throw all the directors out, and the captain prepares to obey. But one of the men kneels and begs for his life, promising to sign the document. A director kneels and pleads with Yoon-gyu, reminding him he treated him like family since childhood. Yoon-gyu ponders that he was kind as a child, but questions his current attitude. Then he orders him to be thrown out, and Kim Soo-hyun hurls him through the window. Another director named Kang tears up a document and dares him to kill him. He states he's not afraid and wouldn't have joined Charlotte if he feared death. Yoon-gyu congratulates him on his boldness, calling him his father's right-hand man. But then he asks who would get his shares if he died. He continues, threatening to go after his wife and daughter if they also refuse to cooperate. Director Kang finally gives in and agrees to the terms. He signs the document, admitting he wasn't thinking clearly. Near the window, Kim Soo-hyun complains he wouldn't have to deal with Yoon-gyu if he had caught Ha-maru. He looks at his phone, which still indicates Maru's location, and wonders where he is. Soo-hyun concludes that unless the tracker is broken, his target must be nearby. He consoles himself, thinking he won't get in trouble for losing Maru, since he helped the vice chairman. As he looks down to take care of the bodies, he's surprised to see Maru on the floor below. Kim Soo-hyun looks down through the broken window and wonders what that is. He realizes someone is there and can't believe his eyes. He then shouts Maru's name. Then he reaches out to grab her. Stepping on her fingers, he calls her a rat. He pulls her into the room, asking where she thinks she's going. Kim Yang falls hard to the floor, and Soo-hyun remarks that she must have strong arms. He says she should have stayed hidden and that she's dead now. Then, he wonders how he should deal with her. Shim Yoon-gyu approaches and asks if he found Maru. He remarks that everything is practically settled now, but he's hit by a sudden kick. Kim Soo-hyun, the real target of the attack, turns around in surprise. He looks at the newcomer, questioning what is happening. Maru appears at the room's entrance holding a knife. Soo-hyun then realizes the person he captured wasn't his real target. Kim Soo-hyun questions who the person in front of him is as they slowly start to get up. He looks shocked, glancing between the figure in the suit and the real Maru at the door, wondering if there are two of them. He then questions if the man standing at the door is the real one. If that's the case, he glances to the side and wants to know who the helmeted figure is. He then smirks and decides not to dwell on it. Then he moves forward, stating he just needs to kill them both. Maru braces himself, concluding that must be the group's leader. He lunges forward, planning to finish him off quickly so he can deal with the board of directors. But something unexpected happens. Kim Yang hits Kim Soo-hyun with a punch, calling him a capitalist bastard. The captain falls hard to the ground. Shim Eun-gyu accuses them of being cowards for their surprise attack. He then orders his men to kill everyone, and they charge forward. Lying on the ground, Soo-hyun says he now understands who hit him. He identifies her as Kim Yang, not Maru. Kim Soo-hyun gets ready to attack, but is stopped by Shim Eun-gyu. Eun-gyu reminds him that the priority now is to capture Maru quickly. The captain gets angry, questioning who he thinks he is to give him orders. Shim Eun-gyu then reminds him of the promise he made to make him the chairman. He concludes that if Maru is here, his father and Eun-young must be dead. But a voice cuts him off. A figure enters the room and asks who he was talking about. Both Eun-gyu and Soo-hyun turn around, surprised as they recognize the voice. Shim Eun-young walks into the room and her brother asks how she got there. She states that she won't die as long as he's alive. Eun-gyu regrets missing the chance to get rid of them both at once. The chairwoman approaches the directors and asks if everyone is all right. They express relief at seeing her and ask about the chairman's health. Her brother also approaches and asks about their father. He wants to know if their father is still alive. Eun-young then slaps him across the face, calling him insane. Shim Eun-gyu questions if their father is alive and states that either way, she won't get any help. Holding the document, Eun-young confronts him for using their father for something like this. She then asks if he has given up on being human. Her brother accuses her of not understanding the situation and claims he has already convinced the board of directors. He continues to gloat, but his expression suddenly changes. His sister then snatches the document from his hands. She tears it up, questioning if he's campaigning with a document that hasn't even been legally registered. Shim Eun-gyu admits he didn't know about the legal registration requirement. He turns to Captain Kim and suggests a small change to their contract. Promised the vice chairmanship if he kills her, Soo-hyun moves towards Eun-young, but she stares him down, remaining motionless. Then he is intercepted by a combined attack from Maru and Kim Yang. Kim Yang complains about everything she went through because of that bastard. Maru then instructs her to evacuate Shim Eun-young and the others first. He turns to Kim Soo-hyun, declaring he now has business to settle with him. Shim Eun-gyu yells at Captain Kim to kill the woman who's running away, but Kim Yang tells him to shut up. Kim Soo-hyun takes out his knife and states he doesn't need to be told. He then charges forward, yelling that he would have torn her to pieces anyway, but a voice tells him not to look away. Maru blocks his path with a knife, declaring that he is his opponent. As she leaves, Eun-young asks Mr. Maru to be careful. Soo-hyun asks if he'd rather be torn to pieces before her and attacks. He then tests Manager Hong's skills with a knife strike. His knife's blade cuts Maru's neck. Maru concludes that because he was focused on his fists, he couldn't avoid the knife. He decides he can't let his opponent strike first, so he rushes in and hits the captain with a kick to the face. He knocks Soo-hyun to the ground and raises his knife for the final blow. But the captain blocks the attack with his arm, calling him a gangster. Soo-hyun expresses surprise that Maru knows how to use a knife and landed a clean hit. Kim Soo-hyun pushes off the ground into a kick. He identifies himself as the strategy captain of the world group as Maru dodges the attack. Then he lands a clean high kick to his face, but the captain realizes his attack was stopped. Maru managed to catch his leg in midair. He then uses the momentum to slam Soo-hyun to the ground. The captain calls him an arrogant brat. Maru moves in, knife in hand. Then he hits him with a series of quick strikes. Soo-yeon falls defeated to the floor as Shim Yoon-gyu screams for him. Yoon-gyu questions how he could receive the vice chairmanship being so weak. He regrets not asking for senior director Choi's help. Soo-yeon tells him to shut up and hits him with a kick. Shim Yoon-gyu falls to the floor unconscious. The captain gets up, complaining that his ears started to hurt from all the noise. Maru watches Kim Soo-yeon get up, not understanding what's happening. The captain wonders how he can move like that after taking so many injuries. He realizes his opponent's unfazed stance isn't something a normal person could pull off. So the captain stares at him and asks if he's incapable of feeling pain. Kim Soo-yeon grins widely and confirms his suspicion. He declares that the reward for figuring it out is death and lunges with the knife. Maru concludes that if he doesn't feel pain, he'll be a tough opponent to handle. But that doesn't mean there's no way to defeat him, so he goes on the attack. He tries to slice his opponent's arteries, but the blow is blocked. Soo-yeon questions him, asking if he's the first to try that. He then disarms him and throws him away. The captain comments that he heard Maru killed manager Hong and was eager to see his skills. Then he kicks him in the face, asking if that was all he had to show. He approaches, stating that he doesn't have time for this. Soo-hyun grabs him, saying he also needs to give Yang a taste of his power. Then he throws Maru aside, yelling that he needs to tie her up and have some fun with her. Lying on the ground, Maru says that's why he has to die. Then Kim Soo-hyun attacks him with a violent blow. The impact leaves him lying bloody on the floor. Meanwhile, the head of security for the Charlotte Hotel, Bae Hyuk-jin, greets the president. He informs her that he's already taken care of the people on this floor, but there might still be enemies on the upper floors. The security chief says he's called a helicopter and asks everyone to follow him to the rooftop. But Yoon-young hesitates, stating that if they leave now, it will be difficult for Mr. Maru to escape. Bae Hyuk-jin insists that her safety is the priority and that Maru asked him to protect her. Kim Yang reassures her, guaranteeing that her comrade is the kind of guy who returns even from hell. The president finally agrees, and they prepare to leave. As they go up the stairs, she asks Bae Hyuk-jin to promise to bring Maru back safely. Back in the fight, Maru presses a piece of wood against Kim Soo-yeon's neck. He concludes that even if his opponent doesn't feel pain, he's still human. Maru compares him to a pig, stating that he's not much different from one. He then says that pigs have a thick layer of fat and don't go down easily unless you hit their vital spots. Maru hits him in the head with a spinning kick. Kim Soo-yeon states he's not interested in him, as common damage only makes pigs wilder. Maru grabs a hammer and says the rule for slaughtering pigs is to kill them in one blow. He then strikes his opponent several times in the head with the hammer. Maru is surprised by his adversary's resistance. Soo-hyun admits that really made him dizzy. He gets up and faces Maru. Then the captain says he should have prepared a tonkatsu hammer and attacks him with his knife. Maru concludes that things will get worse if the pig goes into a frenzy. He decides not to aim for a weak spot, but to restrict his movements instead. Then he strikes his opponent's thigh with the hammer. Kim Soo-hyun expresses surprise that he knows how to use his brain. He questions how Maru can exert so much force with a toy like that. Maru then breaks his arm and then his leg. The captain admits he's a tough bastard, but it's not over yet. Kim Soo-hyun charges forward, screaming that it wasn't enough to stop him. Maru understands there's no right answer and that he can't defeat him with this, so he runs toward his opponent. Kim Soo-hyun asks if he still has an ace up his sleeve and states he's starting to like him. He strikes his adversary's chest, concluding that no physical trauma will likely work. But he knows his opponent is still just a human being. He then decides that if he can shake his internal organs, he might have a chance. Maru looks at his hand and realizes his strength is far inferior to that of the original master of this technique. Even so, he attacks with the move once more. The impact sends Kim Soo-hyun flying backward. Maru steps back as his opponent falls to the ground. He looks at his own hands, realizing the heavy toll the technique takes on his body, but a sound makes him turn his head in surprise. Lying on the floor, Kim Soo-yeon comments that it's the first time he's felt his organs tremble. He then gets up, stating the sensation is splendid, while Maru can't believe he withstood that. Kim Soo-yeon charges, yelling that now he deserves a taste of his power, and Maru realizes he'll be hit if the fight continues like this. But the captain stops suddenly and spits out a large amount of blood. He then falls to his knees and collapses on the floor, completely defeated. Lying there, Kim Soo-hyun mutters about his power, and Maru expresses his relief. He concludes that if he hadn't used that technique, his opponent would have been a huge problem. Bae Hyuk-jin approaches and greets him as Mr. Ha Maru. Maru turns to the bodyguard, questioning if he wasn't just an extra. The security chief states that they need to get out of this place immediately. Outside the building, Choi Ki-jung and the World Group's forces arrive in large numbers. On the rooftop, a helicopter is already waiting for their evacuation. Over the phone, Shim Yoon-young comments that they didn't just bring Shim Yoon-gyu, but also Director Kim. She then asks Yu Dane if she's suggesting they start a war. The president of the World Group replies that although her building was empty, they crossed the line by attacking it directly. She continues, mentioning that they even killed her executives in public. Yu Dane then demands that she take responsibility for all of this, unless she wants things to end this way. Over the phone, Yu Dane reassures President Shim. She states that the cleanup has already begun. As they go up the stairs, Maru asks if Shim Yun-young is okay, but Bai Hyuk-jin informs him that she has already left. The president of the World Group reveals that it's not just about the Charlotte Group's headquarters, but also her hotel. She then promises they will take responsibility and clean everything up. They will make it as if nothing ever happened, as if nothing had ever existed there before. But the men suddenly stop as they enter the building. The manager questions why no one is there and warns his team not to let their guard down. He then orders them to search everywhere, since they could be walking into an ambush. One of his subordinates shouts that the place is also empty, but the manager insists it's impossible they aren't there. The manager kicks a door open, but he doesn't find anyone there either. He then concludes that they all just fled and abandoned the base. He realizes they really did take everything and just left. Annoyed, he complains they'll have to work all night, until a subordinate calls him over with a problem. He turns around and warns them not to talk to him unless it's about the location of Charlotte's people. The man then reports that all the exit doors are locked and the elevators aren't working. The manager finally understands that Charlotte's people weren't avoiding a fight, they were trapping them. The next instant, a huge explosion engulfs the base of the building. Choi Ki-jung stares at Kim Soo-hyun's body on the floor, finding it illogical that he ended up like this after everything he said to the president. He then questions him for ending up this way. He adds that he couldn't even handle Ham Maru. Ki-jung then notices the wound on Soo-hyun's chest. He moves closer to get a better look at the injury. With a wide smile, he admires what he sees. He then realizes the kid got better, and that their next fight will be fun. Meanwhile, Maru asks Bai Hyuk-jin if Shim Yun-young is okay, but he replies that she has already left for the hotel in Busan with her family. Maru questions why they would go to Busan, but Hyuk-jin just states that they will be going there too. He explains that the World Group already controls most of Seoul, so President Shim has been setting up base in Busan lately. That way, even the World Group will have a hard time invading the location. Maru agrees to go to Busan, and they run towards a door where the car awaits. At the Charlotte Hotel in Busan, President Shim walks through the lobby. She asks about the location in Seoul, and her subordinate informs her that the bomb was activated and they are making it look like the World Group's work. Shim Yun-young asks her subordinate about the location of the Japanese. He informs her that the people from Dowi Ranch are on their way, but it might take them a while to arrive. The president then orders him to hurry them up, as the situation is dire. Suddenly, a young woman named Ha Naru hugs her, saying she missed her. Naru comments that the hotel is great, and that she hopes her brother doesn't show up. Yun-young then asks where Kim Yang is, who was supposed to be with them. The girl replies that Ms. Kim had some business to take care of, and will be a little late. In a helicopter, Kim Yang reacts to what she just heard. She asks if they're really going to the Charlotte Hotel in Busan and not the one in Seoul. One of the men explains that they need to regroup at the Busan location to prepare for the counterattack. Yu Dine adds that they won't be able to go to Seoul for a while, so this is the best option for now. Kim Yang apologizes to President Shim and opens the helicopter door. An officer asks if she's trying to get discarded like Captain Kim, but she replies that she left something behind in Seoul. She then jumps from the aircraft, yelling that she needs to get what she forgot. Now in freefall, she says her goodbyes and tells them not to worry, as she'll see them in Busan. Choi Ki-jung holds Vice President Shim Eun-gyu and comments on his pathetic state, saying the president will be very disappointed. He defends himself, saying he was doing fine until Captain Kim tried to find Ham Maru with a cell phone and ruined everything. Ki-jung picks up the device and realizes it's tracking Maru's location. Looking at the screen, he's surprised by the tracker's speed. Meanwhile, firefighters struggle to put out the fire at the hotel. One of them gets ready to go inside, mentioning that witnesses heard screams, but the rooms were empty. He adds that the employees weren't there either, but then they suddenly spot something. Lee Kyung emerges from the rubble, surprised that Charlotte's people blew up their own building. A firefighter tries to help him, but he refuses, saying his health insurance won't cover the treatment. He complains that he has to worry about his health while working a job like this. Then his phone rings, and he answers, speaking with Director Choi. The director informs him that they've found Ham Maru and orders him to take reinforcements to the location, leaving Ki-young confused. He realizes he almost died and is already being sent on another mission. Annoyed, he yells at the director for not even listening to him. The scene then shifts to a quiet residential building at night. Kim Yang sneaks down a hallway. Suddenly, a hand smacks her on the head and knocks her down. An old woman scolds her, questioning why a grown woman would go out dressed like that. Upon entering the room, the men greet her and comment that she's always lucky when it comes to food. A young man then offers to make a serving of ramyun just for her. She sits at the table and declares that capitalist ramyun is the best invention of the southern mines. But the old woman tells her to take a shower, saying she won't eat if she doesn't. Kim Yang rushes out of the room, promising to be back soon so they don't touch her food. Once back, she announces she'll be out for a while after eating, making the men speculate if she has a boyfriend. Inside her room, music plays while her clothes are scattered on the floor. On top of her bag, there's an old photograph. The photo shows a younger version of her next to another woman. Fresh from her shower, she runs back down the hall calling for her comrades. She then announces that she has completed her shower mission, and she finally enters the room, asking them to bring her ramyun. On the floor, one of the fallen men complains that his stomach is growling. Another comrade, lying in a pool of blood, also calls out for his friends. Lee Ki-young, sitting in a chair, complains that director Choi said it was Ham Maru, but it's actually Kim Yang. He then reflects that his life is having a director who doesn't even check the facts before sending him on a mission. He puts out his cigarette in a bowl of ramyun, lamenting that he has to fight Kim Yang after nearly dying. Suddenly, he stands up and tells Yang not to get the wrong idea, as he didn't kill these people and has just arrived. A group of armed men surrounds Kim Yang, and Ki-young explains that they were the ones who killed the people on the floor. He adds that they do their job well, but they're very strict, something she should understand since she used to be one of them. Kim Yang starts to say that it's all just part of the job, but she cuts him off, telling him to shut up and calling him a bastard. Lee Ki-young asks Kim Yang not to be angry, insisting he didn't do it. He explains that just like the others, he was only sent by director Choi, so he suggests they go their separate ways, since he didn't come to capture her. A small gun drops into Kim Yang's hand. She then turns and aims the gun. In a swift move, she shoots the men around her. She continues, disarming one of them with a strike. Next, she shoots the remaining man at point-blank range. The last man falls to the ground from the impact. Lee Ki-young watches the scene and remarks that she must be really pissed off. He stares at her as she approaches him. He then asks if they can stop now that she's killed everyone. Ki-young tries to explain that he almost died getting there, but he cuts himself off. She simply starts eating the ramyun on the table. He then realizes she was just hungry. Lee Ki-young remarks she should have said something, but wonders why she'd eat ramyun with cigarettes. He then offers to buy her a nice meal when they get out, asking in return that she pretend she never saw him. Kim Yang cocks her gun and states that there's nothing in the world, and then points the gun at him, finishing that nothing is as tasty as the ramyun from this place. In an alley outside, the rain is pouring down hard. A group of men runs through, yelling that she's wounded and couldn't have gone far. One of them, injured, swears he'll kill her as soon as he finds her, but he can't go on and collapses to the ground feeling cold and hungry. He then wonders if this is how he's going to die, and he laments that if so, he'd like to eat a bowl of hot ramyun to leave with no regrets. Back in the apartment, the old lady and the other men wonder how long Kim Yang will sleep. One of them notes it's been over 20 hours, and he thought she would have woken up by now. They watch her sleep, and one of the men suggests she must have some story behind her. The young man holding the ramyun decides that since she's still sleeping, they'll have to eat alone. But upon hearing the word ramyun, Kim Yang finally wakes up. Sitting on her bed, Kim Yang eats ramyun while the other residents comment that she should make lunch. During dinner, the old lady serves a plate of meat and warns that the one who eats the most should serve themselves last. One of the men laughs and says that's capitalism, advising the other to start a revolution if he's upset. Two other guys assure them they'll still save food for Yang, even if she eats a lot. That place where she could laugh comfortably was her home, but back in the present, she points the gun at Lee Ki-young and accuses him of breaking everything. She then fires a shot near his feet. Ki-young punches her in the face, shouting that he already told her he didn't do anything. He grabs her face, complaining that he almost died and hasn't even been treated yet. She retaliates with a knee strike, stating she won't be as upset if she just kills them all. He doubles over from the impact of the blow, then he glares at her, calling her a bitch. Kim Yang hits him on top of the head with the butt of her gun. The blow throws him backward, his nose bleeding. He then complains that working overtime is really annoying. Kim Yang points the gun at him and warns that if he's not going to listen, Lee Ki-young brandishes his weapon, shouting that there's a limit to how much he can endure. She asks if he really thinks she'll believe that crap, and he replies there's nothing he can do if she doesn't. He then glances at his watch and complains that he hates working 2 days straight without sleep. Ki-young then declares they'll finish this in 10 seconds. A black car speeds down a highway. Inside the vehicle, a man confirms that Mr. Lee has arrived, checking the location on his phone. Choi Ki-jung informs Shim Eun-gyu that Shim Eun-young has gone to Busan, which he considers bad news. Eun-gyu explains that, as he knows from experience, That place is really hard to conquer. He describes the place as a fortress built with defense in mind, which held out until the very end during the last war. Worried, he wonders what they'll do, as it will be difficult if she stays there. But Ki-jung smiles and tells him not to worry, suggesting they turn the situation around. He explains that if she went into that place, it means she'll have no way out. Back in the fight, Lee Ki-young attacks Kim Yang with his weapon. She dodges and shoots him at point-blank range. Lee Ki-young deflects her shot with his hand while blocking her attack with his baton. She then kicks him in the chest, forcing him back. Kim Yang seizes the chance and hits him in the head with the butt of her gun. He recovers and attacks with a blow that cracks the floor, but she manages to dodge. The impact of the blow sends her flying back just as time runs out. She composes herself and says 10 seconds wasn't enough. Lee Ki-young yells that now he's really clocking out. He rushes at her, and she challenges him to bring it on. Kim Yang shouts that he wouldn't let her leave even if she killed him. He replies that he'd rather sell his soul than let her escape. Suddenly, his expression changes. Kim Yang throws herself backward, shattering the apartment window. She then says that if he wants to get off work so badly, she'll let him rest forever. A bullet grazes Ki-young's face. Outside, a blonde man smiles amidst an explosion. An explosion lights up the night, coming from one of the apartments in the residential building. Shim Yoon-gyu gets out of the car and asks if Manager Lee was responsible for the blast, finding the method too flashy. But Choi Ki-jung notes that such a messy method isn't Manager Lee's style. He then realizes something is wrong. Amidst the frightened crowd, Kim Yang uses the confusion to escape down an alley. Her escape leads her to the entrance of a veterinary hospital. A group of armed men runs past the spot, calling Kim Yang a traitor and ordering their men to find and kill her. Inside the hospital, a veterinarian and his assistant are startled by the noise outside. Wounded, Kim Yang suddenly appears and gestures for silence. She then tells them to stay quiet while she makes a call. A trail of blood on the ground leads to a dark alley. Choi Ki-jung stops and surveys the area. He follows the bloodstains which lead to a veterinary hospital. Ki-jung approaches the entrance. Inside the hospital, the trail of blood continues across the floor. The veterinarian and his assistant are startled by his presence and ask if he's there for an appointment. Ki-jung then asks if an injured woman was there and demands to know where she is. The assistant explains that she received treatment, grabbed her shoes, and left through the front door. He finds this strange, as there was no one outside. Suddenly, Ki-jung spots a van and orders them to follow it. In the van, Ham Maru asks Bai Hyuk-jin what happened and why he's still in Seoul. He reminds him that he was supposed to go to Busan with Shim Yoon-young. In the back seat, Kim Yang explains that she needed to take care of some things for the next day. Maru asks what she needed to do, but she tells him not to worry. She just tells him to wait and see, adding that he'll have to thank her if his life is saved because of it. A winding road cuts through the darkness of the night. Several cars speed down the same road. The convoy then arrives at its destination, the Charlotte Hotel in Busan. Inside a ballroom, several men in suits are gathered at round tables. Shim Yoon-young greets Director Jang, thanking him for coming, but he states it was his duty to be there. He then voices his concern, saying he doesn't believe they have enough manpower to take on the world group, but the chairwoman reassures him, stating they have a way to replenish their power. Suddenly, President Takanaka Yoshinori interrupts them, shouting that Ham Maru killed 3 of his men and burned down his factory. He continues, explaining that Manager Hong was going to pay for the damages, but Maru killed him too. Yoshinori then demands to know where he is. Bai Hyuk-jin approaches and informs him that Mr. Maru is on his way, asking him to take a look at something first. He then hands him an envelope, stating that it should be sufficient compensation for what Maru did. The president of Dohway Ranch opens the envelope, realizing it's certainly not money. He then asks what he's supposed to do with these documents, demanding his money back. Shim Yoon-young calmly advises him to look first before they talk, assuring him he won't regret it. Takanaka Yoshinori questions her confidence and asks if they are real estate documents. But upon reading the papers, he is shocked, and his men ask what's wrong. Shim Yoon-young then reveals that it's proof the World Group embezzled money from their transactions with Dohway Ranch. With this information, she extends her hand and proposes they renew their alliance. Meanwhile, on the road, Ham Maru asks if it's safe to keep driving the van. Bai Hyuk-jin reassures him, saying they'll switch cars as soon as they're out of the World Group's territory. Suddenly, a car slams into their rear, jolting everyone forward. The vehicle that hit them speeds up, preparing for another impact. Maru complains that this is what happens when you're a sitting duck. The van is quickly surrounded by several cars from the World Group. One of the vehicles then rams them hard from the side. Bae Hyuk-jin shouts that they're getting out of there immediately. He then presses a button and tells everyone to hold on. The van starts swerving, slamming into the cars surrounding it. A new car appears behind them, and Hyukjin says he knew he could count on Mr. Kyung Hwan. Bai Hyukjin warns that they aren't safe yet, as their pursuers will catch up in no time. Kim Yang reassures him, telling him not to worry as she loads a heavy weapon. She then kicks the van's back door open, stating she had already anticipated this might happen. Lying on the vehicle's floor, she explains that's why she brought her gear. The drivers of the pursuing cars look at the van, confused. Kim Yang takes aim with the sniper rifle and fires. The shot hits one of the car's tires dead on. The vehicle with the flat tire loses control and skids on the road. It then collides with the car next to it. The crash blocks the road, and she asks her colleague what he thought. She then declares that was the people's blitz attack. Kim Yang turns around and says she told them they would need the gun. A third car slams into the back of the wrecked vehicles, but the van is forced to a stop, blocked by 3 other cars. She then gets out of the vehicle, cursing at those bastards. Kim Yang aims her rifle and yells that they all should have been revolutionized. Suddenly, she notices something moving beside her. Ham Maru leaps from the van onto the roof of one of the cars, surprising her with his move. Inside the vehicle, one of the thugs attacks the driver with a knife. The man screams as he's stabbed in the neck. Maru then finishes the driver off with another blow. Seeing what happened, the other men get out of their cars, shouting that Ham Maru is there, but Kim Yang shoots them before they can react. Maru then leans on the car door and comments on their recklessness. He walks up to her and states that she owes him her life now. He then asks how they were followed, but she assures him she threw away the location tracker. They get into one of the enemy's cars, and Bae Hyukjin comments that while they no longer need to switch vehicles, they won't be able to drive this one for long. Suddenly, a voice on the car's radio calls for number 7, requesting a location report. The voice then reports that they've just blocked all roads to Busan, and that Kim Yang is heading for the blockade. They are shocked to learn the roads have been completely blocked, leaving only sea or air routes. Bai Hyukjin laments that the world group will be watching the skies and there are no ships to Busan, suggesting they could try swimming. But Ham Maru cuts him off, saying there's a solution. He then states with conviction that there is a way. Maru explains he has a friend in Incheon Bay, and adds that this friend has a boat. At the docks, Bae Hyukjin asks if the huge cruise ship is the boat he was talking about and who his friend is. Maru says no, and points down, indicating another boat. From a smaller speedboat, someone waves at them. A woman calls out to Maru, and Kim Yang asks if that beautiful woman is his friend. He then clarifies that his friend is the guy waving from the middle of a group of women. Kim Kisoon greets him, saying it's been a while. The women around Kim Kisoon ask him to stay and have fun with them, but he says goodbye, telling them his best friend is waiting. Ham Maru greets him, commenting that he's still the same as always. Kisoon then runs towards him, shouting his name. Kim Yang watches the scene in silence. He runs right past Maru and stops in front of her, asking if she's been well. Kisoon then drapes his shirt over her shoulders, saying the sea breeze isn't good for her health. He takes her hand and asks for her name, but Kim Yang kicks him and tells him to get lost. She knocks him to the ground and asks Maru if she can break his fingers, while he screams for help. Bai Hyukjin warns that they don't have time for this and need to apologize to his friend so they can leave quickly. Maru simply replies that there's no need for an explanation. From the ground, Kisoon suggests they just head to Busan like that. In the lobby of the Charlotte Hotel in Busan, the mission briefing is concluded. On a podium, Shim Yoon-young emphasizes one last thing, telling them to fight to live, not to die. She then displays data on the large screen, revealing that the power difference between them and the world group is 3-fold. Facing her allies, she states that the more intense the fight, the greater the damage will be. Chairman Kim Dong-ho reminds everyone that they are the future of Charlotte. Then, Chairman Min Chang-seok questions the point of a victory that results in losing that future. Chairman Takanaka Yoshinori advises them not to die leaving their honor behind, but to live to enjoy the glory. Chairman Min then asks for permission to ask a question, and Shim Yoon-young grants it. He asks her directly about their real chances of defeating the world group. She replies that if they fight desperately without a strategy, their chances are 10%. If the executives before her follow the plan, the chances rise to 50%. But she continues, explaining that if everyone understands the strategy and acts organically, instead of just following orders, then the chances of victory reach 80%. And she says she is confident they can win. The executives in the front row stare at her. One of them begins to clap slowly. Soon, everyone stands and applauds, declaring they will bet everything on her with that determination. The entire room echoes with applause for Director Shim. She watches them all with a faint smile on her face. On the deck of the boat, Kim Yang looks at an old photograph under the moonlight. The night wind blows through her hair as she stares at the picture. Ham Maru approaches and asks if it's a family photo. He then asks if the woman in the photo is her mother and if she's in North Korea. Kim Yang replies that she doesn't know if her mother is alive or dead. She explains that when she arrived in South Korea, she thought she had found people who looked like her mother, but she grits her teeth, remembering they were all scumbags. Maru then opens a can of a drink without saying a word. He offers her the can and simply tells her to drink. She takes the drink and says they should take the chance to rest, as they won't be able to once they get to Busan. They toast, and she thanks him for the comforting words, apologizing for making him work all day. As the boat cuts through the sea, she asks where the snacks are. Inside the vessel, someone's shadow moves up a staircase. Bai Hyukjin asks Kim Kasoon if it's okay that he's not piloting the yacht. Kasoon replies that it's fine, as the autopilot is on, and there's something more important to do. Bai Hyukjin points a gun at Kim Kasoon's head and asks what business he has with him. He presses him, questioning how he knew they were going to Busan if Maru never revealed their destination. Kasoon smiles and says that from the way he talks, he must be from the Charlotte group, but Hyukjin just tells him to answer the question. He then holds up 3 fingers. Kasoon explains that by knowing 3 things, you can figure out everything. First, that Maru worked for the World Group. Second, the rumors of war between the Charlotte group and the World Group. And third, the surveillance on Seoul's roads and airports. He continues, deducing that Maru got caught in the middle of the war, and that the situation is dangerous because Kim Yang is injured and they need to get out of Seoul. With the roads and skies blocked, the only option is the sea, and since there are no regular routes from Incheon to that area, the only remaining alternative is Busan, which is why Maru called him since he has a boat. But Kisoon expresses his confusion, saying that Maru doesn't seem like the type of person to get involved in something this big. Hyukjin then puts his gun away and prepares to ask one last question. He wants to know why, even knowing everything, Kisoon is still helping Maru, since the risk is so high. Kisoon starts to answer, saying that Maru is... He then corrects himself and says Maru's family. With a smile, he reveals that they are his benefactors. Bai Hyukjin enters the boat's cabin and approaches Kim Kisoon. Behind him, Ham Maru asks if his doubts about his friend have been cleared up. Hyukjin then asks about his background. Maru explains that at 13, he became the youngest chess master in Asia, completed his MBA at 17, joined Mensa at 18, and was published in Nature at 20. He then adds that Kisoon is now a fund manager who handles assets for important people. Back on the road, one of the World Group's henchmen is down on the ground. Choi Kijung arrives at the scene and asks about all the shooting. He then observes the scene carefully. Kijung notices that hitting vital points with such precision isn't Kim Yang's style, and wonders if Ham Maru was with her. He turns to leave, stating they will go to Busan, but his subordinate asks if they shouldn't capture the 2 of them first. Kijung explains with a smile that if the Charlotte group falls, he'll have nowhere to run and will end up in Busan anyway. He then declares that he will see Ham Maru in Busan. At the World Construction Building, a man walks with his subordinates. Vice Chairman Ma Tai-woong comments that he was craving some hot Busan soup and that everything worked out perfectly. He then orders everyone to hurry to Busan to crush Shim Yun-young's skull and have a bowl of soup. A man tells his subordinates they can't fall behind the other affiliates. Chairman Cha Jae-chul then declares that they will be the ones to capture Shim Yun-young. In a military truck, someone comments that they heard the other affiliates are also heading to Busan. Inside the vehicle, Kim Soo-hyun injects a substance into his own neck. He informs his men that the use of weapons is a direct order from the chairman. With a smile, Soo-hyun concludes that they need to eliminate them all. Meanwhile, firefighters are battling a fire at a residential building. One of them gets ready to go in as soon as the fire is under control, questioning the number of accidents in the neighborhood. The flames consume one of the apartment's windows. Inside, Lee Ki-young is lying amidst the fire. He moves through the wreckage, complaining about another explosion. Then, the cell phone in his hand starts to ring. Lee Ki-young answers the call and confirms to Executive Choi that he's alive. From the other end of the line, he's ordered to work overtime and go to Busan immediately. He then lights a cigarette, complaining that he had planned to take half the day off tomorrow. With the cigarette in his mouth, he decides he'll need to write his resignation letter first. With his arm and foot in casts, Kim Soo-hyun walks up and comments on how many men have shown up. They all gathered just to catch one guy from the Charlotte hotel. One of the men greets him and asks about the drug sample, while the others question his presence. He confirms the drug was good and asks for more, but is told it was just a sample to be used responsibly. Kim Soo-hyun then asks why everyone is standing outside instead of going in. The man explains they're discussing what to do, since there are civilians on site. One of them suggests they just go in, but another objects wanting to keep civilian casualties to a minimum and not put pressure on the president. Choi Kijung claims their orders override that concern, but is told they shouldn't be reckless. From inside the hotel, Shim Yun-young watches the argument. She notes that they're not united at all. The so-called Seonggol line is made up of traditional gangsters, mercenaries, and athletes, while the Jingol line fought their way up from the bottom. When Manager Hong was alive, the conflict never surfaced, but now, divided, one man decides to move forward, telling everyone to go in and do as they please. Chief Park Tae-soo orders his men to eliminate anyone who gets in their way, and they all agree. One of the men points to the hotel entrance, getting Chief Park's attention. Inside, a henchman sees the men in the lobby and asks if they should kill everyone. But Park Tae-soo lights a cigarette and orders them to ignore the men and head up, as their only target is Shim Yun-young. He then pauses for a moment, realizing something is strange. Chief Park wonders what kind of hotel would only have male guests. He stands in the dimly lit lobby. Then he realizes it's all a trap. Suddenly, the lights go out. The men shout to turn on their flashlights because the enemy is here. In the darkness, one of the henchmen's heads is struck. Next, a man with a sword charges at Chief Park's men. He comments that the world executives aren't as good as he imagined. Surrounded by bodies, his men confirm they've killed everyone there. Another man cleans his sword and warns them not to let their guard down, as the war is just beginning. Outside, blood begins to seep out from under the hotel doors. The group watches the scene. As one man asks if Chief Park is dead, Choi Ki-jung remarks that the number of competitors has just dropped. One of the men asks Vice Chief Ma why he wasn't with Chief Park's team. He replies that he didn't need to die with that idiot. Suddenly, Kim Soo-yeon charges forward in a truck, shouting that he's going to run everything over. The vehicle then crashes through the hotel entrance. Amidst the wreckage, he orders his heavily armed men to move in and shoot everyone. The men in the lobby retreat under the attack, realizing their disadvantage in an open space. Kim Soo-hyun then points upstairs and tells his soldiers to kill everyone they find. Watching the scene, Choi Ki-jung's group comments on how well he moves, even with a broken arm, and questions his use of President Yu's troops. A man says his goodbyes, stating he'll go through the underground. He leaves the rest to Director Choi, who says he'll go in through the front door. Shim Yoon-gyu approaches Choi Ki-jung and asks not to be left behind. He insists that with his help, getting in will be much easier. Yoon-gyu proposes that while the others struggle, they can take a shortcut to capture Eun-young. From a room, Shim Eun-young observes that the enemy has the numbers but is divided, and that the hotel's structure limits their power. She concludes that by exploiting their weaknesses and using her own strengths, there's still a chance to win, even at a disadvantage. She turns and tells Ham-maru not to worry too much about this war. He adjusts his glasses and says it's a great plan, as expected from the successor to the Charlotte. Ham-maru lifts his glasses and asks what her name was again. The scene then shifts to the entrance of an underground parking garage. Inside, Vice Chief Ma says to get rid of the Charlotte's men and find Ham-maru. He comments that it would be a huge problem if the others got to him first, but Ma realizes no one is there and wonders if it's a trap, just like the first floor. He stares at the suspiciously empty space and orders everyone to stay alert. Suddenly, a surprise attack erupts among his men. A car speeds towards the group, who try to dodge the vehicle. From inside another car, a man orders over the radio not to hesitate. Then, a group of men armed with bats and knives charges forward. The two sides clash, and one of Ma's henchmen asks where they came from. Standing in front of a car, a man with a sword states that force won't solve this. He then places his hand on the hilt of his blade. He raises it, saying he planned to warm up before fighting Ham-maru. His weapon then clashes with another blade. He shoves his opponent's blade against a car, saying he's going to lose interest. With the car destroyed, the man praises the quality of his own sword. He then shows off the blade and asks if the other guy saw that. The men shout that Ma Tae-woong is heading up and they need to stop him, but he just asks if they don't think he's cool. He glares at one of his opponents, saying that when someone asks a question, he advances with his weapon drawn, demanding an answer. Elsewhere, a group climbs the stairs as their leader says the hotel has 16 floors and that he saw an employee floor in the guide. He claims Shim Yun-young must be on the 12th floor, but just as he mentions they're on the 11th floor, he's shot in the head. The other men realize there's a sniper and take cover. The group's new leader tries to locate the threat down the hall. He uses his phone's camera to look from a distance and spots a silhouette. The sniper is Kim Yang, positioned with her rifle. In the parking garage, Ma Tae-woong stands before an elevator, wondering which floor he'll find Ham-maru on. He deduces there wouldn't be many forces on the front lines, while the elevator panel shows the second basement level. He concludes most of them must be with Shim Eun-young, and decides to head to the top floor first, just as the elevator door opens. But he looks inside and stops, surprised. A figure with its face in the shadows steps out of the elevator. It's Ham-maru, who stares back at him. Ma Tai-wung then breaks into a grin and identifies him. Ha-maru, along with Kim Yang and Security Chief Bae, steps out of the elevator. He's identified as Director Hong's alleged killer. In a meeting room, a man greets him and confirms his name. He then introduces himself as Takanaka Yoshinori, the president of Dowei Ranch. Ha-maru reacts upon hearing the ranch's name. He remembers Dowei Ranch as the place he destroyed back in Japan. He suggests they forget the past since he heard they decided to be on the same side, but Takanaka points a gun at him from under the table. He asks what this is all about. Ha-maru, holding a pen, asks if he came to challenge him. Takanaka glares at him as he grips the pen tightly. He then invites him to shoot, if that's what he wants. A voice interrupts, telling them to stop. Shim Eun-young enters the room and states that their common enemy is World. In the parking lot, Ma Tai-wung brandishes his sword, cursing Ha-maru. He then screams about how much he wants to kill him. Ma Tai-wung charges with his sword, yelling for him to die, but Ha-maru dodges the blow. He then asks him when they've met before. Ha-maru steps back, surprised that he isn't in a position to block him. He then notices something in his opponent's hand. Ma Tai-wung reveals he used the sword's sheath and asks if a trick like that would work on him. Ha-maru calls him a coward, as expected from someone who killed his own benefactor. He charges again, but Ha-maru dodges his attacks. Ma Tai-wung's strikes are clean, fast, and controlled. He isn't just swinging his sword for show. Ma Tai-wung is a true swordsman. With a knife in hand, Ha-maru stops and asks why he did it. Ma Tai-wung grips his sword, stating that Junho adored him. He then yells and asks why he murdered him. The scene then shifts to a pigsty. In a memory, Hong Junho reigned like a king over several fallen bodies. He remembers being just a pig in a cage, under someone else's control. That seemed to be his destiny forever, but Junho saved him from that hell. He then tells the men to go become the president's pigs. When Choi Ki-jung suggests he return to headquarters, Junho replies that he'll raise new pigs right there. Thus, Ma Tai-wung's skills were recognized, and he was promoted to vice president. But Junho remained his king and the idol he aspired to surpass. He attacks again, demanding to know why Ha-maru murdered Junho. Ha-maru blocks the strike, as Ma Tai-wung screams for an answer. In the hallway, the group's leader identifies Kim Yang on his phone screen. She regrets it's not Ha-maru. An object is thrown in her direction, but she says this isn't bad either. Her eyes widen in surprise. A smoke bomb lands at her feet and goes off. Engulfed in smoke, she complains that she can't see anything. A man charges with a knife through the smoke, heading for Kim Yang. He blocks her rifle and greets her, saying he heard the news. He then accuses her of betraying World and switching to Charlotte's side. The man grabs her by the hair and asks how much they gave her to switch sides. He then pulls a gun and offers to triple whatever she received. He invites her to work with him, but Kim Yang deflects the gun and says that if she kills him here, he'll be dead. She then states she won't work for a bastard like him. He says it's a waste and that she leaves him no choice. He lunges forward, saying he needs to send her to her comrades from Goshiwon, but Kim Yang blocks his knife with another, questioning the mention of Goshiwon. She asks how he knows about that, and he reveals he sent his men there. Kim Yang then punches him in the face. She steps on him and asks if the men in suits at Goshiwon were his. She readies herself to strike again and asks if he gave the orders. Then she attacks him and yells, demanding to know if he also ordered the civilians to be killed. The man on the ground asks why they were so important and what it mattered. He then gets up and states it was his job, and that anyone who gets in the way dies. Kim Yang glares at him furious. She then warns him that he won't die easily today. Meanwhile, in the other fight, Ha-maru shields himself from the debris and comments on the mess. He has to move a lot to dodge Ma Tai-wung's longsword, even if he tries to aim for the moment right after a strike. It's not easy due to his opponent's skill in wielding the weapon. He's a monster with multi-dimensional skills, making it hard to find his weak spot. Ha-maru compares him to Director Hong, while Ma Tai-wung asks if that was all he learned from Junho. Then, Ha-maru realizes there's only one way. Just like in his fight with Director Hong, he won't dodge. Instead, he'll face him head-on. Ma Tai-wung is surprised and calls him a punk. He then stabs the knife into his opponent's arm. Ha-maru pulls the knife from Ma Tai-wung's arm. He asks why Ma Tai-wung keeps mentioning the old man, and asks if he liked him that much. Then, Ha-maru says he'll send him to join him. Ma Tai-wung tears his own clothes and praises his opponent's spirit. He ties the fabric to his sword, saying that Director Hong's killer should at least have this much determination. Then he challenges him, claiming he'll kill him in a single strike. Ma Tai-wung questions if he can fight with that blade, but Ha-maru says he'll be fine. He then claims that it's enough to kill him. Inside the Charlotte Hotel, a man is brutally punched in the face. Amidst fallen bodies, one of the attackers recoils from the impact of a blow. Someone then calls out for Director Choi, and he turns to see who it is. Shim Eun-gyu appears in a hallway and calls out to him, telling him to come over. With a smile, he tells them to leave the leftovers behind and hurry, saying this is a shortcut. Using his family's VIP card, he reactivates a stopped elevator, saying they can use this one. Yoon-gyu then turns to Choi Ki-jung and asks if his help didn't make things easier. Elsewhere, a smoke grenade rolls across the floor. A man asks Yoo Dain why the people from the Goshiwon were important to her and what it even mattered. He pulls out a knife, stating it was just a job and that anyone who gets in his way dies. Dain calls him a bastard. And holding a knife, she vows not to give him a peaceful death. The two charge at each other, and the man finds it unbelievable that she's taking this so seriously just because he killed a few civilians. She blocks his attack and questions if he thinks it's funny that he killed her family. Outraged, Yoo Dain asks if he's laughing as she attacks him with the knife. The man answers yes and asks her if she's never killed civilians. And as he attacks her, he asks how those people could possibly be her family. She dodges his strike, grabbing the arm wielding the knife. Dain then declares that to her, they were like family, and lands a punch to his face. He asks if she's really that sad over it. Then he lunges, saying he'll send her to join them, but she blocks the blow and hits him in the stomach. The man stumbles back from the impact of the punch. Next, Yoo Dain reverses the grip on her knife and pierces his cheek with the blade. She then tells him to go and apologize to them. Desperate, he claims he only did it because he was forced to and that he didn't want to kill them. He kneels, begging for mercy, saying he was wrong and that he has a family too. A memory shows Dain happily sharing a meal with the Goshiwon folks. Yoo Dain lets out a sigh. She turns and tells the man to get lost, and he thanks her, promising to never forget the favor. Suddenly, the man turns around. He grabs the gun from the floor, swearing that even if he dies, he'll never forget. But Dain points the gun at him, telling him not to forget this when he's dead. The man pleads, saying he has a family too, just like her. She then repeats his line, saying that anyone who gets in the way of her job dies, and then she shoots him in the head. In another hallway, a wounded man faces Hammaru. Panting, he admits he can't believe how skilled his opponent is, and declares that now he understands why Junho adored him. The man then wonders if he's going to die here. A smile appears on his face. He then says it doesn't seem so bad, and holding his sword, he states that he's having a lot of fun and that it's time to end this. And with one last effort, he charges forward to end it all. Hammaru faces him with a steady gaze. He dodges the sword strike that hits the floor and moves past his opponent, now positioned behind him. Maru glances to the side with determination. The man looks back at him over his shoulder with a final smile. A fatal slash then appears on his neck. Hammaru picks up the sword from the floor and says he'll put it to good use. He rests the blade on the fallen body, recalling he promised to send him to his old man. Then, he pulls the sword free and says to give him his regards. Chief Park arrives, calling out to him and saying he's relieved he's safe. Maru asks if he took care of everything, but Park reports that he can't find Director Choi anywhere. He continues, explaining that he called upstairs and they didn't see him either. Hammaru then realizes Choi is in the elevator and concludes that this is a huge problem. Hammaru then realizes Shim Yun-young is in danger. On another floor, Yoo Dain loads her gun while on the phone, saying she's on the floor below the president's office. She questions if they want her to move up quickly, but informs them that the other high-value targets have been eliminated. Dain then adds that she thinks it'll still be a little while. Kim Soo-hyun, standing behind her, states that there's still one important target left. Inside an elevator, Shim Eun-gyu asks Choi Ki-jung what he thought, and if it wasn't easy thanks to him. He continues, saying he was a great help in capturing Eun-young and that Choi is his witness. Choi Ki-jung simply replies that he'll report the details to the president. Yoon-gyu reminds him that they can't let Hammaru get to Eun-young this time, and then asks, since Hammaru is no match for him anyway, right? As the doors open, he points and announces that President Eun-young's room is right there. He suggests they kill Eun-young first, and then, a man sitting in a chair in the hallway asks if they've arrived. Hammaru stands up and comments that they got here fast. Shim Eun-gyu glares at him and asks what the hell Manager Lee is doing here, and if he's a VIP too. Choi Ki-jung questions what he just heard. With the sword in hand, Hammaru comments that they came straight to Busan. Shim Eun-gyu scolds him, questioning his audacity for speaking to Director Choi that way, and asking if he intends to betray World to side with Charlotte. With his hand on the hilt of his sword, Hammaru confirms that's exactly right, and that he will slit their throats to join Charlotte. He then calls out for Director Choi, and he unsheathes his sword with a swift motion. Elsewhere, a man with a sword in hand challenges Ki-jung to a confrontation. Choi Ki-jung stares at him in silence. A wide smile spreads across his face as he says he's always wondered just how good his opponent's skills were, and then he charges forward to attack. The man tells him to shut up and fight. A memory begins, showing that the start was the same as always. He was a new employee at an exploitative company. Even at 4 in the morning, a superior told him they were having a company dinner and that no one was going home. He held on, and before he knew it, he was promoted to manager. But the environment remained the same, and after an explosion at the workplace, he kept working overtime without receiving treatment. Choi Ki-jung was framed for something he didn't do, nearly lost his life, and wondered why he had to work overtime again. He then wonders if that isn't a bit too much. A colleague lights a cigarette for him, calls him Hyung-nim, and says the situation is bullshit. The man asks what he'll do next and if he'll keep working for Director Choi, but he replies that he can't live like this, and he states that this is a life-or-death decision, where either he or that bastard will die. His colleague then offers him a card he received from the staff at Hotel Charlotte, suggesting he could call if he was thinking about changing jobs, and he adds that since he's going to betray World anyway, it's not too late to switch to Charlotte's side. The business card belongs to Shim Yun-young. He closes his eyes, making his decision. In her office, Shim Yun-young says she hopes he had a good flight and that she's glad he arrived before World did. The man replies that it's fine, and since there's no time, directly asks what she can offer him. She states that she understands perfectly what he means and can give him whatever he desires. He then says he doesn't want much, just a good work-life balance, and she asks if that's all. With a determined look, he adds that he wants to be the one to kill Choi Ki-jung. Back to the fight. He firmly grips the hilt of his sword. Choi Ki-jung throws a punch, which is blocked by his opponent's blade. He spins the sword's sheath with a quick motion. Then, Ham Maru hits Choi Ki-jung in the face with the weapon's hilt. Choi Ki-jung steps back and comments that the rookie moves pretty well. Ham Maru then lunges forward for another attack. His opponent notices that he uses the blade quickly and precisely, mixing in irregular movements. In an instant, Choi Ki-jung kicks him in the leg. The attack throws him off balance and forces him to retreat. Choi Ki-jung then realizes there's a pattern to the attack, a straight cut immediately followed by a kick. But Ham Maru recovers and hits him with a punch to the face. Ki-jung admits that even knowing the pattern, he can't dodge because of his speed. He concludes that he needs to keep his distance against the short and mid-range chain attacks. Ham Maru taunts him, asking why he's just running away now that he's in front of him. He then charges forward, yelling that this is a dead end for Choi Ki-jung. Ki-jung realizes that although he can read the patterns, the speed makes it very difficult to react. So, he braces himself for Ham Maru's imminent attack. Choi Ki-jung says it was just as he thought as he dodges Ham Maru's attack. He then grabs his opponent's arm, stating that his patterns are too obvious. With a firm grip, he twists Ham Maru's wrist and throws him violently down the hallway. Ham Maru spits blood from the force of the impact. He falls to the floor, and Choi Ki-jung comments that his quick movements were great, but it was hard to keep up with his speed. With difficulty, Ham Maru leans on his sword, as his opponent explains that if it's hard to react, he just needs to predict and dodge. Choi Ki-jung then moves forward, declaring that now he will pay the price for his betrayal. He tells Ham Maru that he was a good subordinate. Then Choi Ki-jung smashes the floor with his hand and prepares for the final attack. Suddenly he turns to the side. Kim Yang lands in the hallway, pinning down Shim Eun-gyu. Choi Ki-jung realizes that if Kim Yang is at the hotel, Ha Maru must be too, but then he reconsiders the situation. He understands that someone threw her there and a man approaches, asking Yang how far she plans to run. Kim Soo-hyun suggests cutting Kim Yang's pants so she can't run anymore, but is scolded for using too many drugs. Supporting an injured man, she complains that she was already having trouble with Director Choi, and now he shows up. Then she explains that she found out the man she killed was the murderer of her Goshiwan family and apologizes for the misunderstanding. The injured man says that besides, right now, they should be thinking about how they're going to face those monsters. He laments having to face Director Choi while injured, but Soo-hyun retorts that he's in better shape than him, who has a broken leg. Someone reflects that today will be a tough day and that they're going through a lot of trouble because of that damn colleague. Then, the elevator doors in front of them begin to open. Ham Maru steps out of the elevator, accompanied by Chief Park. With a smile, Kim Soo-hyun celebrates that today he gets to meet not only that bitch Yang, but also that bastard Ha Maru, and then he lunges forward to attack. He curses at him as he approaches to strike. Ham Maru just tells him to stop staring at him with that stupid look on his face. With a single swing of his sword, he cuts off both of Kim Soo-hyun's arms. The strike finishes in an arc of blood. Ham Maru declares, "That's one down." With a wide smile, Choi Ki-jung stares at him. Then, he readies himself for the next one. One of the men shouts into the radio that Director Choi has gone to the 12th floor and orders everyone to head there. He warns them not to split up, so they won't be picked off one by one. But when they open the doors, they're met by 4 armed men. The group is quickly taken down, and the leader realizes they're on the wrong floor. In the stairwell, Another team is ordered to hurry and storm the 12th floor. The team leader asks if they're sure this is the right floor, and his subordinate confirms. With the order to advance, he yells for them to crush everything in their path to capture Shim Yun-young. Suddenly, the leader is struck in the head. Then, Takanaka Yoshinori attacks him with his katana. One of the men recognizes him as someone from Dohwei Livestock. Desperate, he screams that they're on the wrong floor again as his men are attacked. The man takes in the situation around him. In another hallway, a minigun is revealed with a message for the invaders. Cha Jae-chul, Kim Dong-ho, and Min Chang-seok then give the order to kill them all. Meanwhile, chaos erupts in the hotel stairwells. A man panics, wondering since when the floor signs were switched. In her office, Shim Yun-young states that everything is going according to plan. She explains that World presents itself as a powerful organization, but on closer inspection, there are cracks. And those cracks are in their execution, as they made the worst possible decision by prioritizing their own goals. For them, this was the best-case scenario, creating the perfect chance to take them down one by one. The plan was to eliminate World's factions one by one, luring them deeper into the hotel, and then to annihilate them completely. That was the plan from the very beginning. Yun-young adds that the advice from Maru's friend was crucial to the operation's success. Kim Ki-soon admits that tampering with the signs is a cheap trick, but a ridiculously effective strategy amidst the chaos. But Shim Yun-young warns they can't let their guard down yet, as World's executives are strong enough to turn the tables. Back in the fight, Ham Maru reflects that after his first defeat, he thought about it non-stop. He wondered how he could possibly defeat that bastard. The difference between them was at least 2 weight classes. And even with a blade against an unarmed opponent, he was completely mistaken to think he could make up for the disadvantage. Choi Ki-jung was an evasive expert in close-quarters combat. Ham Maru knew that fighting the way he did before, there was no way to win. And so, he prepared for a new confrontation. He had faced that man before, thinking a blade against an unarmed opponent would offset the difference. Normally, after swinging a heavy sword, you need a moment to reset your stance. The simple recoil from the swing shakes your entire body. Trying to fight that recoil and strike again would cause devastating strain, but his opponent managed it, because his physical abilities were just on another level. The 2 blades then clash with force. Ham Maru is thrown back, and Choi Ki-jung remarks that he thought he had something new up his sleeve. He states that nothing has really changed, only the weapon. Still, he braces for the next attack. But now, Ham Maru can replicate his technique. Since his opponent doesn't know how many times he can repeat the move, he'll be forced on the defensive, and in the brief moment when he's the only one attacking, that's when he'll end this fight. Ham Maru lunges forward, delivering a series of rapid sword strikes. Choi Ki-jung braces himself against the wall to block the attack with his arm. Then, Ham Maru finishes the move with a slash that connects with his opponent's head. Choi Ki-jung's eye patch falls to the floor from the impact. He then raises his face, revealing the wound on his eye. With a smirk, Ham Maru asks if that wound was from the old man. Choi Ki-jung calls him a bastard and charges furiously, screaming, "How dare you!" Ham Maru braces for his impending charge. With trembling hands, he realizes he's used the sword too much and is at his limit. He just needs one more chance. Choi Ki-jung keeps running toward him, and he just needs to get into lethal range to strike. Ham Maru then tightens his grip on the sword, determined to end it all. The 2 finally clash in one last confrontation. With a smile, Choi Ki-jung hates to admit it, but he states that if he hadn't stopped midway, he would have been finished. With a swift move, he prepares to counterattack. He explains that Ham Maru was so focused on the finishing blow that he lost control and dropped the sword. With his arm injured, Ham Maru laments his inexperience and the state he's in. Choi Ki-jung approaches, saying he did well. Ham Maru extends a trembling hand, needing just one more chance. He then clenches his fist with what little strength he has left. His opponent moves in to deliver the final blow, but Ham Maru stops him, grabbing him by the chest. He then confirms that he got what he wanted. Choi Ki-jung simply punches him in the face. The impact of the blow hits Ham Maru square on. He falls to the ground, and his opponent questions him, finding what he tried to do ridiculous. Choi Ki-jung then asks if he really thought his own technique would work against him. Choi Ki-jung advances on Ham Maru, calling him a fool. Suddenly, something hits Choi Ki-jung's hand, and he reacts with surprise. Another hand moves quickly toward his chest and grabs it tightly. Choi Ki-jung angrily demands to know who he thinks he is. He then reacts to the impact of a blow to his chest. A wound manifests on his chest, and he wonders if it originates from the injury Ham Maru caused. Kim Soo-hyun's hand tightens its grip. He then lifts Choi Ki-jung and violently slams him to the ground. Kim Soo-hyun stands, panting, as his opponent lies on the floor. Ham Maru gets up and faces the man before him. With a smile, Kim Soo-hyun comments that the last blow must have hurt a lot.